what I taught last week, which some of you were at, which is why we tell stories at all, which is a more complex question than it might appear, because human beings are the only ones that do it. Other animals don't do it, and there are lots of animals on this planet, even very smart ones with big brains and high levels of communication. They don't do fiction. Dolphins don't do fiction. Pigs, and elephants, nobody does fiction. And they don't seem to need it. They don't seem to require it, but we do. And part of how we know we require it is literally every human species does it. So that tells us anything that every thing of a species does tells us that is part of the reason why it is a successful species. So I go sciencey on this real quick. I go evolutionary biology, evolutionary psychology, anthropology, like what are we doing with this fiction? Because you think fact should be good enough, right? We should be able to go, lion, don't go there. But we don't. We go, I'm gonna be the lion. I'm gonna tell you the story as a lion, and now I'm gonna add a crocodile as right? Why would we need to do that? To survive, to feed our family, to stay warm. But we do. So and what I think that allows us to unpack is the necessity of fiction, the necessity of storytelling, which to me elevates what we do from entertainment, which it is often categorized as, from, hi, come on in, from decoration, right, even from high-minded, important culture, to something that is fundamental to our survival, which that's a pretty badass way to think about your job as a storyteller. So what I want to talk about for a second, and I taught a whole class last week about that, so you can go see that online, which we will post in a little bit. So what I want to jump into is this sensibility. So the first thing is that language is power for human beings. And the reason is because there's this marvelous book called *Sapiens*, which came out a year or so ago. President Barack Obama really likes it, so you should read it. It's fascinating, and the second chapter is the one that I would direct your attention to, which is all about the cognitive revolution. And this is 70,000 years ago-ish, maybe more. I should have highlighted the book. But yes, so basically what it is the difference between various different Homo groups, Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalis, and they're all in different parts of the world. Why are Homo sapiens the ones that exist as we are today, our ancestors? And the reason is because of language. And we think about what makes this massive leap from basically apes, that we were very similar to chimpanzees, to where we are now, is actually not technology, it's not agriculture, it's not actually language itself. Because again, there are other species that can say in their version of language, lion, hawk, water, right? Those are factual, present tense things. Human beings take language and create stories. That's actually what has created the ability for us to have the complex and successful civilizations that we have now. And I'll tell you why. Because story controls people better than anything else. It controls it more than weapons. And how it does that is because if we all agree on a thing, if we all have a common experience, a common mythology, whether that is some sort of moral-based religion, or is a storytelling that imposes another kind of morality, whether it's a political narrative, whether it is a social narrative, we are all Americans, yeah! Whatever it is, language as story is the thing that unites, motivates, directs, empowers us, and collectivizes us. So we're the only animal that you can get 500,000 of us in one location, and we can pay attention to one thing, right? Think about Rome, like the Vatican. People in the thousands gather, face in one direction, and listen to one person talking. Other animals don't do that. They really don't. Even more than like 20 baboons, and it's just chaos, right? But human beings, we have evolved to pay attention, and we pay attention to a couple of things specifically. And so the power of language is the power of story, is the power of our attention, our cohesion, and that is how we've moved our species into civilization and our civilization into the societies that we have now. It's a big deal. And it absolutely can be abused, which we've seen in the last year and a half. When the story is wrong, but compelling, people fall in line anyway. It actually doesn't have to be true or factually accurate. That is the danger of story, right? Now, fact and truth are different things, and we can talk about that a little later. But this is the power of language as story. Now, the other thing that we do is we experiment. Other animals do this too, but in combination with language and story, we're starting to build something important. So language is power, experiment is knowledge, right? We eat that mushroom, it kills some guy, we don't eat that mushroom again. This over and over again. I have small kids and I see them experimenting every single second of their toddlerhood is touch that, not touch that. If I take that, I get smacked by my older brother. I will not do that again. Or maybe I will do it again, I'll just be faster. So constant experiment and constant exploration. So that's how we gain knowledge. Emotion, we are bags of chemicals that in their reactions send us into emotional fits. This is why dopamine creates a kind of happiness and oxytocin creates this longing love sensation. We have one of these for every damn feeling that we think is, inspired by other people or the spirit, or no, it's chemicals. So emotion is what makes things memorable. We remember big, fun, hilarious things. We remember really terrible, tragic things. We remember the stuff that makes us feel a thing. Even relaxation, right? Peace is a feeling. So when I think of going to Big Sur and sitting on just watching the ocean, it's not thrilling, but it is a feeling that has made me so at peace and calm and happy. I remember it the same when I sliced the hell out of my finger and was like, ah! Right? Pain, joy, tragedy, these big sensations. That's how we remember things. That is our evolution going, please pay attention to this. This is either something we would like you to repeat, or let's just please avoid this next time. It'll be a lot easier. So all of these together is what a story is, right? So language is the power. Experiment is actually the plot. That's what's happening in a story. We are watching a character experiment, like my toddler, every moment that they are on stage. They are testing things, testing themselves, testing their morals, testing their beliefs, testing their relationships, et cetera, et cetera. So it's one big experiment that's what a play is. And the emotional equivalence, the emotional valence, as it goes up and down, is what is telling us to remember the big moments. To remember that moment right before the kiss happens when all of our stomachs are like, I hate romance, and yet I want them to kiss so bad. That's like my dad and Jane Austen. He's like, I hate that I care, but I do care that they get married. So good writers know how to funnel that emotion into specific moments. And these are related to plot, big plot moments, which this will turn into in a moment. But the thing of a plot moment, a big turn, a big, I'm going to describe them as boulders. When the boulder lands, that is an emotional moment. So big emotional plot, emotion and plot and change are happening all at once. That's what a plot moment is. It's this combination. It's not just new information, it's emotional information as well, of every big moment in a plot. So all of this is why a story is a story. These are why we have them, and frankly why we need them. From the earlier class in Y Theater, we spent most of the class using biology and evolution and evolutionary theory to unpack why we need stories, but the simple truth is they teach us things, and they last. So we get to experience something in a story that, thank goodness, we don't have to experience in our own life. We don't actually have to die of poison like Hamlet does to learn what is rotten in the state of Denmark and how to fix it. And we can tell other people about it really easily. It suddenly takes this basket of knowledge and goes, I may not even remember the moral of the story until I'm like, but it was a really good story. Okay, so it was about Hamlet. and Hamlet's uncle is king, but here's the deal, he actually killed the dad. Okay, so, and then by the end of you rambling through Hamlet, we're gonna come across the same morals that Shakespeare in his incredible articulation will impart as well. So, we are learning things and we are able to impart them and share them, and this crosses, right, centuries. We're still doing Hamlet, that thing's like 500 years old. It still works, right? That's incredible. So that goes back to the first idea of what is successful about a story is if it lasts. Cool, okay, so that's what we're doing. And so every time that you're looking at your story or figuring out which story to write, what's worth the years to write, this is what starts to go through my head. Okay, is it a story that has a lot of emotion or can be injected with emotion? Can I find the emotion? And emotion means humanity, right? Because emotion of a crowd isn't what we're writing plays about. Emotion of a person is what we're writing plays about. So all of the great stories are human stories, and that sounds obvious, but it's easy to think that you can write a play about an idea, and you can't. You write a play about a person. That person can have an idea. And ideally, the other person, perhaps their antagonist, would have a different idea, and they shall battle us for about an hour and a half to 3. And that is a play as well. But the idea that it has to be human, it has to be personal, and of course human, it could be about lions too, as we've discussed. But the bite-sizedness of it is it has to be human-sized, right? So we can learn it, think it, swallow it. The brief version of what we learned last week is the part of that, why we have one main character in a play, which we will discuss the oneness of it, is because we are one main character of our own lives. And we can only actually, if a play is a chance to jump into another brain, we only get one. You can't be in 2 brains at once, or 10. So that's why there's one character that we're following. Even if they are very important characters, you can't really tell the story without the other people. We're following that one main character. They are the actor, the activator in that play. And because we get to go into Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark, we're going in his brain. We're seeing things from his perspective, and that's how we live our lives. So another vote for one protagonist. And I always get pushback from that, but we'll work it out. Okay, cool. So now I want to jump into, if that's our story, this is a chance for you guys to kind of think, and perhaps we can popcorn some answers as well. But the other big thing when I start a play, and even if I've started one, to go back and activate and really make it writable right now, because that's what we're really looking for. Why are you writing this story right now? What is the thing about you and this time and this character that has to be right now? Not that Hamlet can't survive for 500 years and still be relevant, but there's something about who Shakespeare was, who his comrades were, what he'd been through, what the world was like, that he could write that play at that time, which is based in history, right? So he's already reaching back in time to make it relevant to this time, which no wonder that it is still relevant to our time. So I always start with these couple questions. One, why are you writing a play? And 2, what kind of play is it going to be? So those are quite simple questions, but when you speed them out, hold on, notes on the phone, again, sorry, not like checking Twitter. So what I mean by why is, why are you writing this play? I.e., what is important for you to write about? And that kind of means what's important to you in the world. And this could be a kind of activist political question, it could be a very personal emotional question, but there's always something that you really, really care about. And if you really care about it, that's what you should be writing about. Right? Don't go see whatever's on Broadway and go, I should write a play like that, because that one's on Broadway. I will borrow that and just but I'll put my name on it and maybe change the location, and there you go. What's important to you? What makes you you? What do you know? What are you an expert in? And that can be simply yourself, your own existence. That's what you should be writing. What is the human story? We talked about this just a second ago. That is actually the heart of a larger story. So if you care about immigration in America, or gun violence, or the environment, awesome, great. What is the person that embodies that for you? That we get to see it play out on a personal level. Once you know that you care about this big thing and have the connection to what main character or what tiny world, what tiny group of people can play out the various elements of this issue, then you can write that play. Because a lot of us care about a lot of things, and not all of them are human-sized. This is why it's hard to write environmental plays, because it's about the environment, and it's big, and it's slow, and it's hard to find that person to write about it. Now they're starting to be more successful ones, I think, because the issue is ever present and ever important. But it's a hard thing to do. Okay. What is the universal human experience that you can put on stage? So, life and death, right? Birth, loss, love, loss of love. Most people go through, well, at least two of those, life and death. But we know most of us will come to the theater knowing, even if we haven't gone through a death of someone close yet, we can imagine it because we love somebody. We know somebody that we care about, right? So these things, this is why they are perennial in our art form. We're constantly going up to bat against death, against betrayal, against great love and loss of love, over and over again. And we don't get tired of it because it matters to each of us. And it matters anew every year of our lives in a different way, right? I used to worry about my parents dying, now I worry about my kids dying, right? That's different. Or the people, friends, you know, we're changing. And so when we come to the theater, that's the magic of it, right? Is we can, at different times in our lives, see the exact same story that means something different to us, right? That's pretty awesome. That's an awesome power. That is different than effect. Right? Because it's emotional, we're coming to it in a different way. So, finding that universal human experience that you know something about, or you can really, really imagine, and play that out on stage. That is another way of making it memorable. Yeah. Okay. What do you wish to change in the world? That's always a fun experiment. And write it. Or write why it's damn hard to change it. Or write about somebody trying to change it and succeeding or failing, or some version of both. Again, finding that thing that is so critically important to you. Because again, what is memorable is emotion, and emotion is about stakes. It's about something that just freaking matters. It really matters. And you can write a character that really cares. Because they care. I always quote my grandmother, my dear Southern grandmother, was like, an interesting person is a person with interests. So, a character has to have interest, and by that I actually mean like unstoppable, profound care, need to fix something, change something. You know, that care has to be so important because again, we're spending time with this person as they journey to do something about something they care about. They got to care a lot about it. They can't just be like, man, that'd be fine if that happened. I don't want to watch that play. I want the play that it's like, this is life or death. Right. Okay. And then things like what infuriates you, what makes you weep, what makes you laugh, what is a truth to you, and bonus points if it may not be a truth to anybody else. Right? We are exploring our own truths, playing them out, tossing them up, figuring out how to take them apart, put them back together. Do they last? Right? Are they sustainable? These things that we hold to be true. And again, the thing that makes an interesting play is if one person's truth is different than another person's. We are in a perfect climate to understand that, right? So that's the why of writing. And it goes, of course, it sneaks into a little bit of how, and you know, just by asking these questions, something might click in some of your characters to go, oh, right, they don't actually care about anything. Maybe they should. So then what kind of play to write? This is another question. This is in the aesthetic territory of figuring out what plays do you like, basically. That's really what you have to ask yourself. What plays have really moved you? And then go into them and figure out why. What was it about the play? It's not just like, yeah, Hamlet. Right, a lot of people like Hamlet. But what was it about it? For me, I love the freaking ghost. At the very beginning, a ghost shows up. It could be called The Ghost, because that's like big news, right? And the idea that this theatricality, I've always loved this as a kid. This is what I think why my addiction to theater started, the ghost of Hamlet's father. Because he just comes out and is like, I'm a ghost. And everyone in the play, and everyone watching the play just goes, right, cool. Carry on. Right, which exposes to me this magic of theater, which is you can just do that. You can come on and be like, I'm a lion, I'm your mom, I'm a ghost, this is backwards town, like anything can be true if you come out and have someone say it. That is a magical property of theater, which means we can kind of do anything. And frankly, because we're not film or TV, where we have an expectation of production quality or special effects or whatever, we're not Game of Thrones with the amazing dragons, but we can have someone come out and say, I am in fact a dragon. That's actually all we need. And the more and my tail and the fire that is coming off of my shoulder right now, the blueness of my eyes, and the audience is painting that picture for you. They can do it for you. So remember, in terms of what kind of play you're writing, that you are in fact writing a play. And those rules are different from any other form of storytelling. Different than novel, different than screen and TV. And oftentimes it's the simplicity of our magic that makes it so powerful. Right, so remind yourself that you are a magician. And write like one. Maybe that's the t-shirt. You're a magician. Okay, so what plays have most moved you? And this could be Tony Kushner's Angels in America, it could be Shakespeare, it could be Skeleton Crew on our stage right now. All of those things have incredible craft and beautiful moments, and they will all work totally differently. So part of the homework is to see as much theater as you can. And I'm one that I actually can't read it. I know that sounds bizarre. I don't like reading plays. Because I want to see them. My job as a writer is to make something that can be made, that can be lived and breathed and interpreted from various different other art forms, sound, light, costumes, everything like that. Of course, acting and directing. So seeing them and seeing what people do with them, that always inspires me. It's almost dangerous for me to go to the theater because I'll go, oh, that is a thing. I want to play with that thing. So ask yourself those questions and feel free to borrow. I mean, that's part of why I like Angels in America. It's the same reason I like Hamlet, right? We've got angels bursting through hospital ceilings, and we've got impossible figures of history just sitting down and having a chat with you, right? And so the beautiful magic of a play like that inspires me to go, okay, well, what's magic that I haven't seen before? Which there's a lot of magic out there, so let's go see it. Make it. What stories of theater do you like? What stories of theater, oh yeah, have you never seen or never heard of? Those are always great. Right? We always think, well, there's nothing new under the sun. All stories have been told, which is true, but they haven't all been told the same way. So you can tell Romeo and Juliet's star-crossed lovers story in a whole new way. Different time period, different ending. Maybe different endings. Maybe that's something we haven't seen, is that play with like 5 endings. I'm just making this up. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that. That's very junior varsity. Right, okay, so what kind of play to write? And once you think about that, and oftentimes you don't actually need to know this to start one. That's kind of terrible advice, but it is true that you can start tinkering with an idea. I know it's about this thing that happened to me. I know it's about my grandmother. I know it's about gun control. I know something. And these true things can start to add up. And if you start asking yourselves this stuff and add, okay, but what is the emotion in this story? What is my grandmother's emotion? Which for my grandmother would be a tough one. But that's what starts to make a play, and not just a good idea. Or maybe you should write the lecture version of that idea, or the novel version of that idea, or just maybe tell your friend that idea. Yes, okay, great. So those are our what's and our whys. This is going to be a very simple version, and then I will read the more complex version of what a story is, like the most bare bones version of a story. And this can be called dramatic structure, story structure. Super, super simple. And I was taught one version of this in grad school, and I've kind of iterated as I've had a career in writing, because I found I needed a few more elements to really get myself to a place of asking, what is this story really about? How can this not just be a thing that occurs on the stage, but a story, right? A play. It's got to be a play. It's got to be acted out, right? Okay, but all of these things are very important nonetheless. So the first thing is, who is your main character? And that is singular, not ters. Character. Who's your main character? In Hamlet, it is shockingly, Hamlet. In Romeo and Juliet, it is not Juliet, it is Romeo. And we can discuss why. But your play will have a main character, and hopefully many juicy, important side characters. But one main character. Okay, so what do they want? What do they want? That is a simple statement in a complex reality. Because people want many things, oftentimes at once. Oftentimes they want what they want and its opposite at the same time, which we will discuss when we get to this. What do they want? And frankly, the end of the play is, do they get it? Do they get it? All right, all these are questions, of course. Cool. So what do they want? Do they get it? For Hamlet, it's Hamlet. What does he want? I talk about Hamlet a lot. Spoiler, sorry. What does he want? He wants revenge for his father's death, which comes in the package of his ghost dad showing up and being like, hey, I did die, also was murdered, so you should do something about that. And Hamlet's like, okay, ghosts are real, one. Breaking news. Ghosts are real. And then he has to figure out, okay, all of the things to confirm that ghosts are real. Did you see that? You saw that too? Cool. Okay, great. Ghosts are real. Was he murdered? Does various things to confirm that, including the play within the play, the play's the thing to catch the conscience of the king, et cetera, et cetera. Also, Ghost Dad at the beginning, well, he inspires Hamlet to realize that there is something rotten in the state of Denmark. Fast forward to the end. A lot of great writing. Blah, blah, blah. Does Hamlet get what he wants? Yeah. He gets revenge for the king. Now, we don't know what kind of revenge. It could be the kind that is just embarrassment. Exile, get Claudius out of the king, never to return, out of the kingdom, never to return, totally embarrassed by everybody, outed, rejected, or, stabbed, or in this case, poisoned. So yes, he does get revenge. And I like to mention that it is not as such a simple thing. It takes 5 hours to do it. So there's lots of steps to confirm what you want, to make sure it is what you want, to go after what you want, to lose what you want, to regain it. And then in the end, Hamlet does in fact get what he wants. Now, the spoiler is that he also dies. So that is not what he wanted. But to get the larger goal of what he wanted, he ends up dying in the end. So this is where what is simple is actually Hamlet, like one of the most beautiful, complex, emotional, psychological plays of all time, and we can in fact boil it down to 3 questions. So this is super basic. But what we can start to add is going to get into our larger form of dramatic structure and plotting, and making it not simple, because Hamlet could just be like, cool, you killed my dad, stab, done, and it's like a 10-minute play. But it's harder, right? Because he's a sitting king. Claudius is a sitting king. Also his uncle married to his mom, super complicated. We're not sure if he actually did it. He has to confirm that when Claudius does literally say out loud, super sorry, God, that I killed the former king. He's praying, and Hamlet is like, dude, you're going to go right to heaven. You're going to do all that and go right to heaven because you just confessed. If I stab you right now? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to stab you right now. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. Wait, so he could have done it then. Now things get more complicated. Ophelia comes involved. Poor Ophelia. Blah, blah, blah. So this is again a complex thing, and it should be a complex thing, which we will again start when we get to plot and conflict. It's got to be complex. It cannot be easily accomplished. Yes, okay. So who's your main character? What do they want? Do they get it? Now we start to add some interesting things. What do they want? What do they discover? Right, you can't want something that you don't know is there. Right, so that's part of the play, is there is a discovery of some sort, a long lost secret, something in yourself, inner strength. Maybe you've got amnesia and terrible writing, but you've unpacking that. So there's always something to be discovered. So what is it that they discover? What do they learn? right? Because you can go after what you want, and you may not get it, but you can learn a lot of things. What are the other ones? What did they discover? What did they learn? What do they reject? What do they have to throw off in themselves, in their world, in their philosophy, in their religion, in their family, to go after what they want, right? That's a big one. And, you know, what do they give up? What do they reject? Or we can say sacrifice is probably a more dramatic word. What do they sacrifice? I don't know what the last one is. We'll save that. You have an idea. You can throw it up later. But you know, so you see what's going on here. So this is like a this is like a fairy tale, or even it's like a, I don't even know. It's like the simplest kind of story. Who's your character? What do they want? Do they get it? It is also Hamlet, but it's also a very simple story. So we start to add these things, and really, what all of these are moments of plot that are obstacles for our hero as they go after what they want. And sneak peek into over here, what they want is actually usually not what they need. Indeed, sorry. Life lesson. And a Rolling Stone song. What you want is often not actually what you really want. You think you want it. Hamlet thinks he wants revenge. Somebody killed my dad, and that is not acceptable. And I'm the prince, and I will exact revenge. And thus, all things will be righted. But remember what he himself says in Act 1, something around in the state of Denmark. Dude is a part of the rottenness. And that is what he learns while he's trying to get what he wants. He wants revenge. But revenge is more violence. It's more putrid, human, primal behavior. That's not decency, that's not dignity, that's not the kind of government that a modern country should have. So, in the end, yes, he does get vengeance, but he dies, and what he actually needs is to clean the state of Denmark, to de-rottenify it, to ripen the state of Denmark. Well, that's a terrible metaphor. Anyway, but we get to the end, and that's what he's done, right? Claudius is dead, Gertrude is dead, Polonius is dead, Hamlet himself is dead, Laertes is dead. All the people of power, all of the entire lineage is gone because Fortinbras shows up at the end and is like, cool, it's my country now. Right, so all of what is rotten about Denmark is actually cleaned out. Hamlet didn't know that he was a part of the rottenness, or he wasn't able to acknowledge it at the beginning of the play. But yes, he did get what he wants, revenge. Also what he needed was for himself to die, to get rid of all the rottenness in the state of Denmark. And what we see at the end is the beginning of a new nation. We literally, the last stage direction, nobody realizes this. Ooh, we should put that at the end. Yeah, stage direction. Oh, I'll figure that later. I wrote a little article on this, I'll send you guys, because it was this amazing thing of going, what actually is the end of Hamlet? I know like the end, but what is the actual last lines of it? What are the stage direction? And it is Fortinbras coming and saying, rah, 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 my country, gone. But the actual stage direction is everybody's dead body being taken off stage while cannon fire is heard in the distance. Right? What? Whoa! The symbolism. It's so beautiful. So for a play about literally getting the rottenness out of the state of Denmark, we have rotting corpses on the floor, and we take them off. Done, great, it's all clean. So again, thinking about how detailed the simplest questions about a very complex and beautiful play can be. So this can be your play too, right? So thinking about every single atom of your play is fractalized in terms of the big narrative that you're trying to tell. Every atom of this play, every word, if we're going to get really goofy about it. Now, of course, not every word, but you know what I mean. It has to be in the fiber of your story, the larger question, this conflict between want and need, which, again, opposites are going to cool, okay. So yes, so that's how we kind of, I start to think about it there. And you can literally ask yourself these questions, because it's different if it's Juliet's play than if it's Romeo's play. It's a different play. But when we know it's Romeo's play, we see the play starts with him lovelorn, we realize what kind of guy he is, squishy-hearted guy. And, you know, a little bit of temper. We get civil war, right? And then we keep going throughout the play where it's his action. He's the one who sees her. He goes up to her. He's like, who is that lady? A Capulet? Going in anyway. He shows up in the garden. He's the one that's like, let's get married. He's the one going to the friar. He's the one killing folks, right? Getting in brawls. So it's all him. And in fact, she's mostly reactionary. Now she's pretty awesome as a lady, but also they're really young. So it's really a play about like, don't be young. Don't be young. Just don't do it. Anyway, so yes. Okay, cool. Let's start drawing pictures now. So this is, I'm kind of a visual person. I'm visual and verbal, so I need both. So this is going to be, there's a lot of ways to draw out a story. And the one I used to draw all the time, I will draw in miniature here. Kind of looks like that. So time and kind of intensity, emotion. I call that force of will, which is my version for like the level of difficulty rises, the emotional, the stakes, the action, right? It's all kind of increasing in intensity here, but there's not one word to describe all that, so I just use force of will. Doesn't that sound? Yeah. But this is one version that I've written a lot, and I found this one to be a little bit more intriguing for me. So this is the climax. This is the sword fight in Hamlet that ends the play. This, of course, is time, inciting incident, which we'll place these out on that board too. But it kind of has like a direct line. We're like, yeah, we learned some stuff that starts the play, and it is just a ramp of stakes and action and kind of experiment, testing over and over again until we get to this moment of self-definition, which I will say that a few times, self-definition. That's what a climax really is. It's when, one, you can't go back. This decision means it's either before this decision or after this decision. There's no way to escape the decision, and there is no way to have both. You have to make a choice, and it will define our main character, which is part of where we get to this want and need, and part of when we talk about character, we reveal who they actually are. And I will just drop in Aristotle right now. Aristotle, among many smart things that he said about playwriting, is that characters, the truth of a character is what they do, definitely not what they say. What they do, what they do, what they do, what they do. So this, if you think about a climactic moment, that's the chance for them to prove who they are. And you can't talk your way out of it. It's all action. This is why this scene, in all those plays, in every play, the climax of a scene isn't a talking moment. It's a doing, feeling, being moment. And oftentimes, as writers, especially if you're coming from another discipline, like short story or novel, you're used to unpacking an idea in language, and dialogue, and discussion, and all of the wonderful tools that we have in great novels. But that's not actually what a play is about. Because a play, our tools are people. It's this. And we have to watch this do a thing to prove who we are. So that's why the actors in the room, that's the fun plays. Talky plays, sure, fine. But if kissing plays, the biting plays, the like kick punching whatever plays, the smashing glass plays, right? Those are the fun ones to act, and frankly to watch. Right, because there's only so many times you go, in a play, right? for it to be like really memorable, you want to be the ones where you're like, oh, right? So, a lot of that is the climax. So I was inspired by this diagram early on, but it also confused me because it felt like that's too simple. So I started to develop this diagram to help me really consistently challenge myself and articulate both verbally and visually, what are the things necessary? How do you build the damn thing? What are the ingredients? This is the box of the play. It can be however long you want, 2 acts, 1, 3, I don't know. But what do you put in it? And how? In what order does it go? And you know what I mean? So that's what we're gonna do. So this is our play. And I will talk about an act break or a midpoint. It doesn't actually have to be an act break. And when we talk after the break, we can talk specifics about the difference between, like, what's the benefit of a 2-act play, 3-act, 1, whatever. But there is a midpoint. And this is where you get, oftentimes in storytelling, we'll have the beginning, middle, end conversation. Beginning, middle, end, beginning, middle, end, beginning, middle. Yes? But that's kind of useless. I mean, like a worm has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I don't, what does that tell me? Except like that you can buy. So, what we're gonna do is talk more specifically. So let me get my little phone notes. Okay. Awesome. Force of will, going this way, time going this way. This is obviously the beginning of the play. Now, you see there's a little inch of space where you have for things to just be chill. And this is sometimes useful to start the play with normalcy. What is the normal day in Denmark? And in this case, the normal day is Hamlet just being a pain in the ass, moping around, everyone being like, what is his fucking deal? Oh my god, this guy. Which we can get to talking about likability in character, my favorite sexist word. Which of course we don't think of Hamlet as likable or not, but every female character has to be likable, so I'm just gonna drop that little bit of feminism right now. We'll pick it up later. Okay, so we have a little bit of normalcy that you are welcome to, especially in a complex world or a world that we don't know. It's not just, Maple Drive and suburbia, but it is a very specific world. We need to see what normalcy is. And Skeleton Crew, which is by the amazing Dominique Morrison, is on our stage right now. We see that. We see things normal. People are coming into this break room, but it's the break room of an auto manufactory in Detroit. None of us do that or live there, so we need a minute to go, but what is what's the rhythm of this? And frankly, we need that so we can tell when something goes amiss. So okay, you can also start right in the middle of the action. I prefer that, but that's just me and the kind of plays that I tend to write. Either one is totally fine, as long as you have this bad boy show up early on, which is the inciting incident. You've probably heard that. Inciting incident. I also call it the initial obstacle. Initial obstacle, which if we think of these lovely circles as boulders, it is both a literal and figurative obstacle. So that's the thing that's going to start the character's journey. So we can have normalcy, and the inciting incident for Hamlet is Ghost Dad, which is totally weird, out of the ordinary, and by most people's standards. But it is not just the fact that ghosts are real that is the inciting incident or the initial obstacle. It's the news that the ghost brings. Dad's dead, but P.S. was murdered. Intrigue. And you have to do something about it. And Hamlet says, "Cursed spite that I was born to set it right." So literally, that's the entire play. Cursed spite. Gotta set it right. So that's the first thing that happens. So in your play, we need that thing. What is the disturbance? What is the first boulder that just drops in the middle of this person's life? Holy shit. And I mean that because they can't ignore it. Right? Hamlet can't just be like, maybe another day. No, immediately sets into action. He follows the ghost. Tell me more, what's going on, tell me more. And then of course, because he's Hamlet and he's very philosophical, he's like, P.S. what is heaven or hell like? Tell me the things. Dad's like, none of that. Focus, Hamlet. Focus, young Hamlet. But what is that for your character? What is the thing that just drops in their lap and they go, oh shit, my life is about this right now? The example being like, if one of your kids gets sick or a parent gets ill, you drop things. You gotta focus on that. You can't just be like, I actually have a meeting, let me get back to you. No, it has to happen now. So finding that thing that is impossible for your characters to ignore and they immediately care about, right? That's gonna, if you get that right, I'm telling you, your play's just gonna write itself. Not really, but you'll have lots of energy. You'll have the dynamism to go. So the things that we really, really need this to be is high stakes. It can't be the highest stakes because we got a whole play to go, but super important for them to care about and super noticeable and immediate. So urgent, important, noticeable. Those have to be the first inciting incident. So then every scene after that, so we have our main character. Now we know what they want. And literally between what they want and do they get it, this is the entire play. And so now we're going to start dropping little boulders. So this is the next scene. And that boulder is going to be like, oh, well this isn't as easy to solve as I thought. First obstacle, right? So every scene has an obstacle that challenges your character, that gives them something to learn, to do, to reject, to sacrifice, to discover. Every single scene has something that is propellant of your character. And I actually don't mean, propellant makes it sound like you're just like, woo, I just get some gas to go to the next station. No. What it is in the process of overcoming whatever the hell is going on in their scene, they learn something, they gain a superpower, they gain a tool to further accomplish their goal, what they want. So every scene has to be that. If you're writing a scene and it is lovely, it's funny, it's poetic, it's really beautiful, but it accomplishes nothing, it gives your character no new information, no challenge to them, then you're not writing the right scene. Then that can be beautiful, but it's not for a play. And again, think about this. This is when audiences start to check out, when you get the rustle, the watch check, the like, looking in the program, you know what I mean? The death of theater, is because you're boring, so don't be boring. But the reason you will avoid being boring is actual things are happening. Actual stakes, actual learning. Something is happening, something is being tried and tested, something is being debated, there is conflict. So every scene has some conflict, some other incident, some other obstacle, some other news that makes it harder. So scene, another scene, and see how they're right next to each other. There's no like break where you get to go have like a little dance or have a glass of water. We're just going on. It's the train and it's not stopping once it starts. Again, if you see plays that are yawners, it's probably because the writer or the production has just slowed things down too much. Like once we're on the train, like let's go, baby. I know what he wants now. Let me see if he gets it. Right? So, okay, scene. Okay, but you will notice now that the boulders are getting bigger, right? They don't get smaller. We don't just go from like, oh, thank God. Oh, great, good. Okay, that was easy. don't write that scene. We don't need that scene. We skip to the other scene where, okay, somebody new comes, and now we have what they're already after, plus this whole other thing they have to deal with, right? You're already trying to do something important, and your son scrapes his knee. Okay, I actually can't avoid that either. Okay, you're coming with me now, right? So it adds. Every scene. Okay, so we're getting more scenes. Okay, so now right at this midpoint, we have an even bigger, bigger boulder. All right, so measure-wise, it's bigger. And this is what this diagram didn't articulate for me. That was a big revelation. And this is, I'll give you some books that articulate this better. Screenwriters are really good at structure, so you can read a lot of great screenwriting books, but theater is different. So we're going to apply some of those screenwriting techniques, and some of them it's like, you can keep that. We'll do our own thing. So this one is this, we can call it a complication, which sounds pretty easy. But it's this, I call it the surprising complication. So right in the middle of the story, there's an, oh shit! Something that was just gonna derail the entire thing. And it happens right in the middle. Oftentimes, smart folks will put that act break right there. Right after the boulder lands, dust is settling, everyone is reeling and going, where did that come from? Blackout. Go buy some wine, have some candy, come back in a minute. So this surprising complication takes this, it's not one of the many obstacles that they are kind of successfully, even if they're not overcoming totally, they are learning, there's something going on, they're proving themselves. Often, if it's not like an Indiana Jones story, even an Indiana Jones story, where it's plot, they're learning things about themselves. The character is challenging themselves and going, okay, wow, because I survived that scene in that manner, I now know I am this kind of person. And that can either be good news or bad news, depending on what you know. But this huge complication is going to happen. This can be the introduction of a new character. A play I co-wrote called Miss Bennett is a romance, and right in the middle, we're starting to fall in love with these characters. They are just like, okay, I can't wait for this marriage to have. It's Jane Austen, so it's all about marriage, right? Marriage, and they're meeting each other, awesome. This big news lands right at the act break that the gentleman of this romantic couple that is just about to be acknowledged, they both like each other, we know it, they're about to know it, they're about to say it, and his fiance comes in. Shit! So now that is a thing that is, well, not only does it make it hard for them to just run off and get married, but it completely undermines the romance we just saw. What the mean you you've been literally lying to me this entire, okay, so now everything I thought I loved about you, now I hate about you because you were lying, you're the kind of person that would do, oh my God, Right, so we start Act 2. Man, there's still complications, and we're still gonna have a boulder there. It's a different kind, right? So now everything we learned from this complication just makes everything, oh, God damn it, it just makes it like it is impossible. The thing that they wanted at the beginning, which in the case of this story, Miss Bennett is a love story. So all love stories have that thing where we're like, oh, no, they don't like each other. Opposites, oh, well, I mean, maybe. Oh, they're kind of interesting at least. I mean, I don't hate them. Oh, he's kind of handsome. Oh my God, you have a fiance, you're going off to war, you're, I don't know, secretly an animal. Maybe a literal or figurative animal, anyway. Something happens where, oh, this is not going to work. It will literally never, never work. So that's where we start the second part of the story. So we have all of this as experience, as baggage for the character, as they've still learned all the things they've learned. They just now have to do that plus whatever opposition has just happened to their goal. So the second part of the play, we're going even more scenes, even more, tons of, oh, maybe that should be a little smaller. Anyway, scene, building to the final boulder, which oftentimes doesn't necessarily have to be a surprise. It is not always a big reveal of some terrible secret in the past, like you have a dead person in the backyard that nobody talks about or whatever. But, as my notes say, yeah, so this is the climactic moment. Climactic moment. It is, in fact, the moment we are waiting for. And it is a moment of self-definition. This is what we're talking about. I mentioned that before. So the climactic moment has to be, again, something that we can't go back from. We can't not decide right now. It is similarly from the inciting incident. They're kind of mirrors of each other, just more, even more urgent and high stakes, emotionally valent. All of those things are happening in this moment. The difference is the inciting incident, I mean, the character could go, I don't want to do that. At the inciting incident, we just wouldn't have a play. But at this point, it is all or nothing. So in a love story, it's usually the final declaration of love, an explanation of the confusion, you know, and 12th night, it is people being like, actually, I'm a girl, have been the whole time. And I love you. Please marry me. So love stories are often that, and Miss Bennett, of course, it is that moment. But it is not a simple, like, I love you. It is a force, right? The person is leaving. It's the whole, like, running to catch the plane scene, right? That is what it should feel like. It is, something is going to change forever unless you say or do or be this thing right now. Prove yourself right now. And in that moment, of course, they prove that she is a person that insists that he define himself. It is Miss Bennett's story, but as with any love story, they're closely related. And the character that she is professing love to is one who she knows loves her back, but is just too chicken shit to do anything about it because it's going to be a big change on his life. Because he's, again, supposed to marry this other person, it's all worked out, he's not a conflicty kind of guy, and she's like, you're gonna know this about the world and yourself, and you're gonna not do anything. I actually don't want to be with you. Turns and leaves, and then he's like, okay, wait, actually, I do love you, oh my God. And it's this beautiful moment, and it's right, but there's that complication. It's essential to do it right now. She's leaving, he's supposed to be going, it's all or nothing, we can't undo this thing once it's done. So that's the kind of love story version. In Hamlet, the climactic moment is a bit of a facade, built around a facade, which is a sword fight. So Hamlet and Laertes are, who's like kind of like the Duke's son, something like that, and Hamlet is the prince. And this is a big event. It's like tiny Olympics for Denmark. Hamlet and Laertes are going to fight, and it's kind of a show, right? It's fencing. But it's a big deal, a big social event. Everybody who's anybody in Denmark is going to be there, right? This is at the palace. This is the prince. This is a big deal. So that is, I say that because it is an essential element to Hamlet's original goal. And it's so beautifully crafted, the end. So we have this very visible event. Now there are secret elements that come into play. Poison on various tips of swords, poison in cups. The King Claudius, in all of his deception, has poisoned a cup of wine, hoping that he will give it to Hamlet to toast him or congratulate him at some point. It will be poisoned, and thus Claudius's goal of ridding himself of Hamlet will be cured. There's also poison on the tip of the swords, so that even in a friendly duel, suddenly, oh, what's wrong with Hamlet? Oh, he's dead. So, again, deceptive guy. But the moment of self-definition and this climactic moment also has an element of a reveal. So there is some revelation that is part of this last moment. Again, in the love story, it's pretty obvious. You like, I do love you. That's often what that is. Or I'm a girl, or I'm actually the king, and you're now because you love me a queen, or something like that. But the climactic moment has a moment of revelation. For Hamlet, it is Laertes is dying because of an accidental poisoned sword incident. Gertrude, his mother, has accidentally taken a sip of poisoned wine. She's now croaking on the floor. It's looking bad and about to get worse. So Hamlet, as Laertes is dying, with nothing else to lose, he says loudly to all there, again, everyone who's anyone is there, he says, the king's to blame, talking about the father and all of this poisoning and all of this deception. He says loudly, the king's to blame. And that actually accomplishes what Hamlet wants, which is revenge for his dad's murder. That is the exposition. That is the reveal to all of the people that matter. So everyone now knows what Hamlet knew to begin with. And it is confirmed true. He's not crazy, even though he asked himself several times, am I? So that moment is huge. Right after that is the moment of self-definition for our title and main character, Hamlet. Because after that, he can walk away after that moment. Because that's the no turning back moment. You can't unlearn that. All of Denmark can't be like, oh, I'm just pretending that I didn't know that. He can walk away at that point and be a hero. He doesn't. He goes to the king with rage and that rottenness at his core. He takes that poisoned cup and says, follow my mother, puts it down the king's throat, poison, bleh, king dies. So he now is a murderer, which is the whole point of this whole thing, was to avenge a murder, and he at the end becomes a murderer. So that is the moment, again, an act, a thing that has happened with his own hands that defines him in a way that he probably would not define himself before. Now, he kills people earlier in the play, but he does so accidentally. Polonius is, by all means, an accident. Ophelia, tragic consequence. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are definitely, he intended for them to not live, but he didn't do it himself. And then at the end, right again, he probably, even through all that, is like, I'm a good guy. Shows up at the end and is like, no, I want to make you die with my hands right now. Done. So, that is why it's such a brilliant climactic moment, and why you can write a play right up into that moment. You can have him debate to be's or not to be is the purpose of living, justice, righteousness, all of this stuff, until that moment when he decides, he proves who he is. Again, if Aristotle says, it's about what we do, not what we say. Okay, Hamlet can say any damn thing he wants, but you're still killed the king in front of everybody. Also, he is dying too, because he is accidentally poisoned. So, at that moment, after a big climactic moment in your plays, so again, the more layered you can have it, the more that you pit your character even against their idea of themselves, and have them prove at the end who they are, then that's going to be such a satisfying climax to the journey that you've gone on. Again, thinking back to our opposites here, what they want and what do they need, Hamlet doesn't even know. In some ways, I mean, he knows he needs to clean the rottenness out of the state of Denmark. He doesn't actually realize that it's him until the end. Cool. So at the end of the play, we have an optional denouement. There's not really a goal there. Just an empty space. Because at this point, the denouement in most plays is pretty swift after that. And except in love stories. Oftentimes love stories, we kind of want a little party after. It's fun. We want to be like, yeah. Which is the case in a play like Miss Bennet. In the case of Hamlet, it's pretty much like, oh my God, everybody's dead. The new guy comes on, Fortinbras. He's like, yeah, this is my kingdom, and we're out. So we don't spend it a ton of time. We do have that beautiful moment with Horatio and Hamlet where, tell my story. Dying Hamlet says to Horatio, and of course, good night, sweet prince, may flights of angels sing me to rest. Oh, gorgeous. So a little poetry, doesn't, why not, add it at the end. And so that's our play. So again, trying to figure out, in building a story, I would look at the big moments and try to figure them out first. So, what are these 3 things? The sooner you can know those 3 moments, the 3 elements that are colliding and dropping with an enormous crash into the middle of your character's journey, then you can start filling in these things, right? And that's when in the scenes, if we think of these scenes as earning the big boulders, as leading up to stair steps to the big boulders, then those scenes can do some really awesome, subtle or not subtle scene work. Meaning we can add all sorts of wonderful language and world creation and theatricality that helps earn these big moments. So that's part of what plot is, which is what we will get to. Yeah. Actually, why don't we take a break? It's been an hour-ish, maybe?
Wow.
Let's take a break, and then we'll go back into all of these bullet points.
Okay.
Great. What our gear diagram doesn't really do a good job of is, of course, like the wonderful, beautiful, magical things about a play. It's just a bunch of boulders. So this is obviously mostly about plot. We have, by necessity, explored a little bit of conflict and this kind of stuff, some character, etc. But I really want to spend some time diving into those things because, of course, that's why we're writing all of this. So the first and obvious thing is a plot. And when I think of plot, it actually just means when things change, which means they have to change, which means if something is not changing in your story, you gotta change it. Yeah. Or you're not writing a play. You're writing a meditation, which we don't go in groups to see those. We do those on our own or in silence in various religious facilities. But plot is about when things change. So your job as the writer, as an audience, these usually happen in moments of surprise, shock, energy is injected into a scene, but as a writer, when you are engineering these scenes, it is your job to find the thing that is going to change so that your main character has to adapt, has to pivot, has to evolve, has to react, has to grow. Those are the things. Each one of these scenes is when something changes. That's what a scene is. An entire play is a massive change that we see happen from an individual perspective. Again, that's why it's an experiment. That's why the science of it is useful. The biology, the evolution of it is useful to us because we're watching things change so that as an audience member, we can go, do I want a change like that in my life? If so, perhaps I shall follow some of these lessons. If not, I shall not. I shall avoid everything related to that story. So if you think about it like that, we are watching every domino fall. There's a wonderful book on playwriting called Backwards and Forwards, also on directing and dramaturgy, but I love it for playwriting. And it describes every moment in a scene, every beat, every scene, every act, and building into a play as dominoes falling. And the only way that it's interesting to watch dominoes fall is if they hit another domino. So something changes, and it causes something else to change, which causes something else to change. So if your play, again, has those yawn moments, has these like, what am I writing about again moments, has, oh, but it's funny, but it's not worth like 2 scenes to earn that joke, that means the dominoes are falling and hitting nothing. And then you have to get all that energy to push the next domino down. Instead of, if you started going, the play should just go. Hamlet does this, all great plays do this, where that's when you feel like, wow, that play was 3 hours, I didn't even notice that. Because those dominoes were hitting each other, and it was really dope. So you have to find those moments when things change. This can be phone call entrances, reveals, final blow-ups that are finally happening, anything. Oftentimes when we think about plot moments, they are based around argument, which is true, but an argument itself isn't conflict. Conflict and plot are when somebody changes their mind. So it's not the actual middle of the argument that we're waiting for. It's somebody to go, yeah, right, fine, I'll come with you. Right, like then, ooh, that gives us the story chill, right? That, you start to feel the wind of the story at that moment. If we're just in like, blah, 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 no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, okay, fine, no. Whoa, now we have a new reality. Something has changed. What do we do with this now, right? So everything that has to happen when you think about it as an and or a but. So something happens, somebody enters, so and, that they enter and that causes something else to happen. Or but, i.e. despite of what has happened, or in reaction to what has happened, it sets something else in motion, right? So there always is kind of two options for when you create something that changes. It's got to spawn the next thing. Well, inherently it will spawn the next thing, but either it is a kind of an agreement to what has happened, or a resistance or a conflict to what has happened. So plot equals change. Now, all of the changes of the entire play aggregate or accrete into the entirety of the play, which is really essentialized in this climactic moment, that moment of self-definition, that reveal, that final thing that we can't walk away from. So all of this meaning that every single thing that has been learned, that has been applied, the tools gained, the moments of self-revelation are all there to earn this. So everything in that last scene of Hamlet, has its roots in the rest of the play, right? It's not a surprise. That's that whole Deus Machina feeling, when at the end it's like, well, where was the magician the whole time that could just set everything right? Wait, it doesn't satisfy. It doesn't feel like it was earned. It has to be, the seeds are all in what we've seen. So it's one of those like it was there all along kind of moments, which is why, again, stories are so valuable, because it's not just the fact of a thing, it's the emotion. There is nostalgia that happens at the end of the play. It actually is there, because even nostalgia for an hour ago before you saw that act. Because we thought something different at the beginning of the play than we're going to think at the end. And when something is happening to that main character, that pleasant, bittersweet, strange gooiness of nostalgia, or by empathy, regret, will start to really hit us at the end of the scene. We go, oh, if you just hadn't, in Romeo and Juliet, right? That's the biggest one. When you're like, oh, if they just had gotten there earlier, if she hadn't taken that, if they'd gotten the message, right? It breaks your heart at the moment. That's the entire point. It's supposed to break your heart. But even scientifically, that's what it's supposed to do. We're supposed to go, yeah, get your messages, right? That's the whole takeaway. That's terrible. But yes, so all of this is the accretion of the entire play is met in this moment. And sometimes a play doesn't feel right because those things feel too disparate. Like what is happening here and what's happening here didn't actually lead up to each other. And it's not hard for that to happen, because we sometimes feel like, well, we better wrap this up. Let's do something spectacular. Let's have aliens land. And then it's like, wait, I thought it was a love story. What are we doing? So anyway, trying to make sure it's all leading to the same reveal. But things changing. Please make things change. Everything, something has changed. And in fact, once you get in the hang of it, it really is a propeller into the next scene, because you can just go, all right, I'm going to get that entrance in. I'm going to have that person of ill repute walk in the room. I'm going to have this drop in there. Somebody's fired. Somebody's ill. Somebody's dead. Right? All of that drops in, and suddenly it puts things into stark contrast, or it makes things more relevant. It makes things more urgent. All of this is built in. Okay. So when we talk about conflicts, there's another amazing book on writing called Into the Woods, not the Sondheim musical. It's called Into the Woods by John York. It's one of the best books on writing that I've seen. It is primarily about screenwriting and TV writing, but it has great relevance to all dramatic storytelling, including us. Excuse me. And one thing that he goes into a lot, and part of why I love his book is it talks about why we tell stories, not just how to tell them, which I'm such a nerd for that conversation. So I really love the way he describes it. And often a lot of the science and biology and evolutionary talk is similar in his book. But one of the things that became really clear to me, which when I read it in his book, I was like, ha, I'm not insane. Conflict is all about, as is most physics, equal and opposite forces at work. Because if opposite we get, right, conflict, you would assume there is some opposition. But the real technique is that they are of equal power. And this is true for every element of the play. So, in a love story, they have to love each other as much as they don't love each other at various points in the play. Otherwise, it would be a really easy story. If they just showed up and be like, you like me? I like you? Let's do this thing. Great, 5 minutes, and we're done. But there has to be lots of things getting in their way to make it not only opposite, but equal. And that's, again, a love story, we're going to assume that they're going to get together. We're going to hope they're going to get together, or some kind of get together. So what the character wants has to be, actually, he or she must want its opposite in equal measure. That sounds weird, but Hamlet actually doesn't want to be a hero, but he has to get revenge for his king, for his dad. He wants to do that real bad because it just pisses him off that somebody's getting away with this. The injustice of it, not to mention the violence and the familial connection of it, right? But he actually, in terms of the opposite, equally doesn't want to do it. There's a lot of things you have to do to enact justice. He doesn't really want to kill anybody. He just wants to sit around and mope. I mean, really, he's a scholar. He wants to read, he wants to be moody, he wants to flirt a little, not even that much. But he doesn't actually want to take action. That's what to be or not to be is all about, to do or not to do. It's not like, should I kill myself or not? He's not going to kill himself. He doesn't want to do that. So there is this pull. He knows what he is supposed to do and what he actually does want to do. He wants to act for vengeance. He just kind of wishes it was easier and wishes somebody else maybe would do it for him, and I have to do this. So the sense of creating something internally in your character that they both, the wants are similar. Again, if it's too easy to want this, then they'll just do it, right? Then it's over too quickly. So the other pressures you can put on a character is their world. The world around them, in terms of conflict. You can be in conflict with your world. And the force against what you want is as equal as the force that you wanted. So oftentimes love stories. In various times of history, love is complex. We can't marry a person of a different race, or of a different gender, or of a different social class, etc. So that is the world putting pressure to make it really hard for your characters. As much as they love each other, they don't want to disappoint family, they don't want to be exiled, they don't want to be killed, they don't, etc., etc., etc. So that's part of the way for equal and opposite. Inside each scene, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Again, if that's what we understand conflict to be, every scene has a moment where it is equally likely that this person is going to win the argument, or this person, or this is going to happen versus this. And then, when there is some break, that is why it is fun to watch, because we are watching something hard happen. If it's easy, we're like, oh, that's lovely, okay. But we want to watch train wrecks and gladiatorial matches and football games and things that are like, that is complex and hard. And in certain cases, like physically dangerous. But that's what attracts us. Because again, the easy things most of us can accomplish on our own. We don't need an experiment or lesson to understand them. But like untangling and subverting political dynasties, I'm going to need a primer on that. Let's have a play that does that hard thing. So the more that I kind of thought about that on every single level of the play, the entire play is trying to accomplish something that is at any moment could kind of go either way. That helps you from being too obvious as a storyteller too, where from scene one we're like, yeah, they're going to be hard. Duh. Right, no, we have to make it hard. We have to make it hard or else we don't care, we don't watch. So making sure that the opposite is also of equal power. So character, there's so much to talk about character. Primary is Aristotle's what they do, not what they say. But that also means let them say stuff. Let's be proved wrong, right? Let them lie. Let them say things that are totally ambitious or wrong about themselves, self-deflecting, or just absolutely incorrect. And we see by what they say versus what they do, that does great drama. That is the work of drama for a lot of it. So make them be totally pompous and arrogant, and then the whole time being like, yeah, you go and say that. We're really sophisticated social creatures, so we can tell we're not going to be bemused by people easily. We are constantly on the lookout for people lying, for inconsistencies, for strange patterns in personal behavior. We have to be, because we are the most social creature on the planet, and certainly early in our evolution, it was an absolute necessity that we got along. So noticing right away when somebody's lying, or when they like you, or when they are pretending that they like you so that they can subvert you, all of that stuff, we have really heightened antenna for that kind of stuff, which is why it's fun to watch people. We are like a moth to a flame. Any person, we're gonna look at them first. So like one practical note, but it exposes a larger truth, is that if there is something really important critically to your story, or some beautiful poetry you want to draw attention to, do not have it occur when somebody is entering. Because every person in the theater is going to go, new person, right? And then whatever the hell is happening for that 60 seconds or whatever is just going to fade away, because we are evolved to go, new, are you, you're good? Okay, you're good. Okay, what were you saying? Right, so that is just, again, practical note, but it does expose that we are drawn to people, and we're really drawn to complex and maybe uncertain emotion, where we don't get it right away. If somebody comes on and is super sunny and obviously authentic, we're gonna go, yeah, I know who you are. But the guy who's like, what's up with that guy? Why are you doing that? What is that? Did he say something? Right, we're gonna lean into the complexities of people, which is what you have to do with your characters. You have to make them complex. They can't be easy. They can't tell the truth all the time. They can't be totally morally upstanding, or else, frankly, they're just super boring. Especially a main character. Some side characters you can have be various morally pure people. Fine. But yeah, the main character, the whole reason we're watching them is to go, what is it like to have that complexity, to deal with that complexity, to when do I know when I know. It's a bit like Hamlet, trying to go, did this happen? Are there ghosts? Did he do this murder? I need more information, right? Because we don't just accept things. So we want the fun of unpacking a person. So part of it is every single one of us has a facade that we're putting in. This is my teacher facade. This is my playwright Lauren facade. And there are things that we are really comfortable with. We like the way that we portray ourselves in this manner, and it can absolutely change. The moment I'm around my kids or my husband or my family or my great friends or whatever, or people I'm really intimidated by or really dislike, right? The whole thing changes. We're very amorphous and transient as creatures. So build that into your character. We all have them, but it's somehow hard for us to write a facade. It feels like you're writing like 3 characters in one, but that's who we are. And I only say that because you don't have to. But if you do, it is all the more interesting. It is so compelling if we see someone being sweetsy, and as soon as that person leaves, they're like, motherfucker, I'm gonna kill that bastard. Like, whoa, interesting character. Okay, now I'm totally on her train. I wanna follow her wherever she's going. Right, so having those, again, an internal conflict. This is a little about that equal and opposite, right? What are we to this person that we are equally and opposite of when they leave? And there are all those moments. This also exposes, in this kind of facade land, what characters should populate your play should be the ones that trigger different facades in your main character, like who they are around their friends, who they are around this girl they're trying to please, who they are around the person they know that they can boss around. Filling the play with those characters helps define your main character, who again, it is about one of them, and helps challenge them, makes them adapt. We're literally watching them adapt as they enter a room. And we start to root for them or root against them, but it's fun to root against them, so we're really rooting for them, kind of thing. So all of that helps us elaborate on the main character and make the world really rich. So again, it's all an experiment, so we need to experiment. We need to put them through a thing. We need to test them with this person, with that person. That's kind of exposes another little practical thing, is not every one of these scenes needs to be in your play, but if you imagine a scene where one person, every character is alone with every other character in the play, what that exposes about them, what that elaborates. And so you might find amazing things when you think of, I really have never put them, they're never in a scene alone together. This character, like high status and super, super low status, do it. Just get them in a corner for a second and see what happens. It might really be inspiring to see, wow, this person is such a good guy, but what a dick he is to the maid, right? That's something that the audience can go, oh, thought you were better than that, or like, she deserved that. But so playing that game can also help, again, populate your play with meaningful moments. Not just for character, but especially if you have your mind on moving that plot forward and getting to this climactic moment of, again, self-definition, where we are open and exposed for who that main character is. Testing that character against all the other people is going to help you get there. It's also just a fun writing exercise when I'm like, my play's too short. I'll play that game and be like, ooh, this pair hasn't had a tete-a-tete. Okay, so other character things, which again, it's all really, we're talking about the same stuff. When we're talking about character, we're talking about plot, we're talking about conflict, we're talking about all of this, but separating it out helps me have categories to kind of go back to. Okay, so character, secrets. Have some secrets in your play. Because the fun of secrets is telling them. And so, most great plays have some sort of revelation at the end. Now it can be big stuff. It can be dead person in the backyard that we never talk about. It can be you're really adopted. It can be I killed somebody, which is the dead guy buried in the backyard, whatever. But having something that you're keeping, whether if it's in a drama, perhaps it's a personal trauma that I will not talk about that incident. And then finally, even having a secret, even having it makes your play more interesting. If somebody just goes, there's that thing, there's some letter. Do not open that. I said don't open it. Ooh, okay. I am now really interested in what's in that letter. Right, so having something that you purposefully withhold is really, really valuable to your play. And that's a really obvious one, but there's a ton of ways for your characters to let us know that they're hiding something or that they're protecting something. I'm telling you, it's gold. Or even in the way that it's delivered, and this is another practical thing, where you can, in your stage direction, say she is lying when she says, I really love him. A great actor will know how to do that, right? They're going to know, and again, because we are so socially aware, we're going to know, and that makes us go, why is she lying about that? There's something there. Again, as an experiment, we want to know where the hard stuff is, so we can go and unpack it and figure out, again, so that doesn't happen to us. So we are, from a safe distance, learning everything. So we want to learn the crazy stuff. We want to learn the dark stuff. Again, like any car wreck, we can't help but slow down and be like, show me a foot, right? We kind of want to see something terrible happen. Scientifically, we actually like drama more than comedy. We like watching tragic things and being sad. Because we're awful people. Masochistic, terrible. But it's true. Again, think about it. If we're trying to learn stuff so that we can survive, we want to see the bad stuff so we can avoid it. So that's part of why we enjoy it so much. Yeah?
What's the source on that?
I'll send it to you. There's a Washington Post article called something of art. What is it? The Science of Art? Anyway, they just came out with it, and there's a bunch of new neurologists that have been studying the pleasure center is activated, how much dopamine is released when we watch this versus this. And since we're talking about character, good timing. There was a MIT researcher, I believe, who did some neurological studies where they were able to sample the blood, how much oxytocin was in the blood while people watched different kinds of stories. Oxytocin is that super gooey love feeling where we're like, I'm comfortable, I'm super happy, I'm into this, I want nothing to change. And character-based stories, really intensely character-based stories, are the ones that we want, i.e. not about ideas or facts or like, this is a true history that I'm relating to you. It is about people. We want to know, what is that person? What do they care about? What is their fault? What's their flaw? What are they lying about? What do they really love? Who did they love? How did it end? Right? We want all of that detail, which is why character, should be the largest letter, really. Character and plot are kind of the thing that really a play is all about. So these should be the biggest things. So character-based, scientifically proven to be more important. Which is why sometimes experimental theater, meditative stuff, a play about ideas, a play that's kind of, half this dance as opposed to, where characters aren't really, they're more objects or something like that. It can be absolutely beautiful and compelling, but it doesn't trigger that kind of like umami sense in our minds of like, oh yes, I want that. That like soy sauciness. You want the sauce, people. You want the sauce. Yeah.
So did they want to say, was there more oxytocin?
Tocin.
When it was something sad and gripping?
That was a different study. Yeah. I don't know that one as well, but I will send all of this out to you. Yeah, so science is on our side. Okay, so another thing about character, it's kind of like similar to secrets, but lies, like straight up lying. Not bad. Iago's entire character is based on this. And man, what a character. God, it's like the best one to play. He's so bad. And just doesn't care. It's so exhilarating. And part of that, again, when talking about character and plot, there's a beautiful moment that was articulated. It was articulated by Mark Rylance in an interview I read a long time ago. It was a TED Talk or something. But it was about the end of Othello, and part of why it was so fabulous is Othello is outed. He is exposed for being the mastermind of all of this awful murder and everything, and like just how bad he is. And he refuses to give a confession at the end, which sounds like, sure, don't incriminate yourself now. But back then, public execution was an event, a family event, family fun. And the whole point was to get people to confess. And you would, just to survive the pain, eventually be like, fine, I fucking did it, please put my innards back in. Right? But it was literally entertainment. And and that's what they wanted. They wanted the person to say, you did it, aha! Because it frankly confirms why we're all watching this horror show. That like, good, yep, see, I knew it. I'm glad I'm witnessing this atrocity. I'm doing nothing to stop it because he did it and deserved it. Well, Shakespeare is like, he's so bad, he's not even going to confess for you. You don't even get that, which makes us even more mad at Iago. It's so genius.
That's why he's damned because he dies unshriven.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Perfect.
You what? I didn't hear.
High five. You can, yeah.
Just that he dies unshriven. He hasn't confessed his sin.
Yeah. So like the fact that Shakespeare is like, which makes us like, oh, shocked again. So anyway, beautiful. So imperfections, massive imperfections, lies, secrets. This is complexity. It's also human survival. Like it doesn't mean that we lie that we're an Iago, we are a mastermind of deceit. It means that we're probably just getting to the next thing. You're like, yes, I took the garbage out. I did. I'll do it later. I don't care. Right? There's something about us that is just getting from moment to moment, and it's all when that catches up, which is our plot. When that catches up to a character, and they have to say, well, it seemed like little things, a la Hamlet. I mean, I did kill Polonius, but I thought he was a rat. And I did kill Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but they were bad, and it wasn't my hands. I just told someone to do it, but they didn't have to do it. And I did kind of am responsible for Ophelia going crazy and killing herself, but I mean, it was her own willpower. She didn't have to do that. I never said we were getting married. But at the end, all of that combined with we're watching you murder someone. You're a murderer, dude. Like you're just awful. Rotten state of Denmark, out you go on a stretcher. So again, all of this stuff is this combination of what makes a character not only interesting, but great to write. It's more fun and easy to write a character when there is something going on. The kind of light version is when we know a character dislikes something, and that thing keeps coming back, i.e. Indiana Jones and snakes. Every time he sees the snakes, the audience goes, so Indy. So Indy to be afraid of that, right? But you can do that in little things in your play too. And not only, it does what we do. It laughs, it collectivizes us. We go, oh, we know that person because there's something that I hate, that you hate. It doesn't have to be the same thing. It doesn't mean that I have to be afraid of snakes to feel for Indiana Jones. I just substitute whatever my thing is for the snakes. And then I go, yeah, man, I would totally react like that if it was bugs or something. You know what I mean? Worms, God! Right, so it's suddenly, there's empathy, there's collectivism, we're on the same boat. So there's lots of stuff that you can do to make your characters distinct. That's the important thing too. If they are all the same, what are we doing here? And it's easy to do that. When we talk about language, we'll talk about them sounding the same. Sometimes when you get in a rhythm, all our characters make the same kind of jokes, have the same rhythm in their language. So even thinking about how long their sentences are. If everybody in Shaw plays, and I do love Shaw, but they just talk very similarly, and they talk a lot. So it is. It's just like it's obviously written by the same person. It's all the same thing. Sometimes Mamet does that with all the short, and everyone's like, God, everyone's yelling and cursing. That's all they do. So having distinction in your language can help identify distinction in your characters, right? If somebody doesn't talk that much, maybe they're really just paying attention. Why don't they talk that much? That's for you to help fill in. And go, are they keeping secrets? Are they being deceitful? Are they just super shy? Are they really in love with the person and can't even fucking remember their name when they're in the room? So all of that stuff helps. Okay, so yes, lying. It's all the terrible things we're not supposed to do. We put in a character so we can watch them and experiment and see, but how bad is it to lie? Let's just do a little experiment. Write that play where he lies a lot. I just want to see, okay, that is bad. I will not lie. I did not. Good, lesson learned. Thanks for showing. Cool, okay. Characters so much fun, right? It should be fun. All of this should be fun. I know it's overwhelming, and it feels like work, and it feels like the kind of thing where you're like, I don't even know how to start. That blank page is just eyeballs staring at me. But it's great fun, because you can always change it, and it is just a play. But if you think about it as experimentation, as like, how can I make this richer? And I'm talking a lot about Hamlet, but it works with comedies too. The more distinct, in fact, you can't do comedies without secret lies, super distinct characters. It's not funny if they're all the same. And frankly, the more real a character is, the biggest laughs that I have is when characters feel like friends, because that's when we laugh the most, is when we're friends. Or like watching Chris Rock or something. Like really good comedians can all make us laugh. But most of the time, on a consistent, it's day by day when I'm watching my 3-year-old be a dumbass, and I'm like, yes, you are so freaking funny. Or with my husband and I, we get into the thing, tell them, remember that time? And they're, oh my God, that was so funny. Right? It's the people we know and love. We have a stake in them. So feeling like creating characters where we feel like we know them, we feel like we love them. There's a play of mine called The Book of Will, which is built on that. The first scene is in a bar. Everyone's like 3 whatever, sails to the wind, whatever that is for a super drunk. But it's about Shakespeare's friends. So we think it's going to be a world that is foreign to us, or we might know a little bit about, but it should be academic, and it should be very, it's about Shakespeare. So we have to be very reverent, respectful, pedestals. But starting it in a bar where everyone is wasted and totally making fun of a terrible actor they just saw do Hamlet. And they are ripping this guy up, and then they're drunk, and so they get nostalgic and kind of sad and mourn their friends. And then they're like telling fart jokes, and so it just kind of lets us in, lets us love them right away, because we've been those people in college or whatnot, or now. We know that feeling when you are just on a roll, and it's all happening, and it feels good, and it feels warm, and then suddenly you're weeping with somebody, but it's a good feeling. You're like, yes, I love you too. I love you. You know what I mean? All that stuff. So starting a play in a very collegial way, avuncular and friendly way, is one way to start in a world that would feel like it needs to be something that you don't want it to, that as a playwright, I want it to feel lovely and funny and we can laugh. It's not a play about reverence and the deity of Shakespeare or fancy costumes that make us look stiff and unfunny. It should be about us. Just they wear different stuff, but they're like us. So anyway, character. Okay, cool. Language. Different than that language. It's a more grand language. This is like literally what you're saying. We'll just go where we left off, distinction. Just be distinct. Think about how people talk. Do they finish their sentences or not? Do they do that thing where they like can't remember the word and then someone corrects them and they immediately go? Are they funny? Are they very serious? Does somebody correct other people all the time on grammar? Right, all of these things are real in the world. And sometimes it will be to the end of just making it a different kind of person. And sometimes it's to the end of like actually pushing the plot forward. Right, so there can be a whole revelation if somebody corrects somebody and that word actually triggers a memory which goes to then the reveal, right? So you can have a domino set off by anything, but the more distinct they are, the better. And it's super fun. So symbols and metaphor, there's incredible power in them. They have great purpose in plays, and in fact, you must put them in your stories. Like it can work without them, but it is so much richer. And will frankly do more work for you, carry more of the story's load, if you have good metaphors and good symbols. The example being, there's a love story, and we know that she likes butterflies. I made a big joke about butterflies earlier. Well, he totally fucks up, betrays her, whatever. Whenever the man brings her a butterfly, maybe it's a real butterfly. Ooh, how about this? Okay, wait. He has a butterfly necklace that he gives her. Oh, very sweet. Okay, he knows she likes butterflies. So we're like, okay. And then he goes, I love you. Millions of butterflies start flying away, take to the air. Okay. Oh, okay, I forgive you, I love you too. Right, so suddenly something that is super simple that you can drop way here, can do actual work in this climactic moment, can do actual work in these big moments. And it does it without having to have a bunch of exposition, a bunch of dialogue. So much of great theater is actually not what's said, it's what we intuit. We will talk about doing the work for the audience or letting the audience come to you. And there is much more satisfaction in the audience putting something together than you telling them what to feel, what to think, what is true. As you have seen, I love you, and therefore we should get married. You can do that with one, like, you wanna come with me? And she goes, and they leave. Right, that could tell that story. I love you forever, we're in it, we're gonna, yeah. All of it with the smallest little question. And it feels much better, much less cheesy, melodramatic, whatever. In drama, this is the same thing too. Like how, instead of the like James Bond villain monologue of like, I shall tell you now exactly who I am and why I did everything and why I'm about to kill you. There's a way to do that that is more subtle, that is based on symbol, that is based on little things left out, or metaphors. So using that is incredible power. Think of one of the best plays written in the modern era, Tennessee Williams' Glass Menagerie, right? It's in the title. It's a glass menagerie. Symbol, symbol, symbol. What happens to these delicate animals? They break, like our main characters. Yes, so beautifully, beautifully executed. That scene is also right in the middle of our play. So, structure. So think about that. What are the symbols that you can build in early? And Miss Bennett, there's this discussion of snails that comes back. It's like not a beautiful thing, but it becomes like quite meaningful to these two dorks who love each other. There are, something as simple as a red rose, a little obvious, a little on the nose, but for a love story, one rose can say way more than a monologue that is drippy, cheesy can do. So think about, certainly watch plays. And Skeleton Crew, there's these signs that are keep putting up all over, like no smoking, there's a meeting, whatever, and at the end, the guy rips all the signs down and he's like tearing them up. Right, that's great. That's beautiful symbolism. There's the symbolism of like salad dressing. Someone keeps stealing this person's salad dressing that they leave in the communal fridge. Yeah, anyway, obvious symbols of like guns, that's also in Skeleton Crew. Okay, symbols. And so this leads us into the world of the play, which is both like the setting, sure, and there's successful plays that have a billion settings, like a movie. We're going to a lot of different places. There's successful plays where it's one setting. So that's kind of, up to you, do what you want. But what I'm really interested in is the rules of the world. That's what the audience needs to know. If it's the normal world, we can guess what the rules are. But that doesn't mean you have to follow them. That can be, if somebody just starts flying, okay, again, like Ghost Dad, we're gonna be like, I'm gonna go with you for a little while on this. I'd like to know why they're flying, but you can tell me. So, rules can be broken, but we need to know what they are for you to break them. So in any rule, it doesn't necessarily have to be like laws of gravity that are broken, but what is that normal day, and that little inch you have before the inciting incident? What are the normal things that happen? What is going to be weird? If that happens, is this a violent place? Is it a safe place? Are we at war peace? Is this a family setting? Is it a happy family? Or not so much? Et cetera, et cetera. So thinking about that, making sure those are clear. Oftentimes in readings and workshops in play development, that's often a note that I get or other writers get. Like, I just wasn't sure what the rules of the world were. I wasn't sure what was okay and what wasn't okay. So just knowing that early on. And the other thing to think about is, so theater is constricted, right? It's not a movie, it's not TV. We don't have, all of the settings of a movie, the special effects of TV. We don't have 40 episodes to walk this character through their world, which can kind of be like, oh, you have one room and like an hour and a half to tell a story. Boo. But the truth is that there's incredible inspiration in the constriction of theater. It makes us inherently intimate. And so making sure that your play honors that and is inspired by it, is fueled by that instead of resistant to it. So sometimes when you see adaptation, somebody's writing a screenplay but then they try to make it into a play, it doesn't feel like it belongs, it fits. Because you are rejecting the form instead of saying, okay, there's a lot that can be done in the form of theater. And that's not just like one room, live, everything, the actors play the entire thing through every night. Not true in movies and TV, right? They'll do scenes and it takes a month to shoot the whole thing, right? It just baffles me how actors do that, how you just like drop into a moment when, So seeing a play, of course, we see it all in one night. The athleticism of that is amazing for actors. But also, there is the mystery one at the bottom here, is the audience. Because ours is with us. And that's not true of TV and film, or novels, or poetry. Those are separate experiences. Even if we see a movie in a theater, which not many of us do these days, but some of us do, it is different than seeing it at home, right? There's some movies you kind of want to see in a theater. Part of that is because of the audience experience, but theater has to have that. You don't get one-on-one, like on-demand theater in your bed. That would be weird. I mean, it may be a new form that we can collectively. And there are some interesting. There was a production in New York of like a one-person play where it would be like in a car and across a table, and it's very interesting. But it's kind of a weird thing, cool thing, but not usual. So the last element to think about, I'll come back to theatricality, is this constriction of theater also has this amazing thing of a live audience. There are actual bodies, breathing human beings in the room with you, and that does change the experience. In terms, the obvious one is we hear each other laugh. We know each other there. We know what's funny, or something funny is funnier. Something that feels is feelier, because there's a lot of people doing it at once. And there's a way to take advantage of that. And again, that doesn't work in movies and TV in the same way. In fact, like in House of Cards, when he looks out to the camera, if you've seen it, there's at least in the first season, they kind of drop in and out of it. But in the first season, a lot of it was Kevin Spacey's character would look out at the audience, like through the camera, like right into the camera. And it was very jarring, because that doesn't happen. We don't do that. Shakespeare does. Hamlet just shows up and he's like, to be or not to be? I do have this thing I want to talk with you about. So that happens in the theater, and that's part of the theatricality of theater, and what makes a play. Just make sure you're writing a play. And it's easy to forget that one day your play will be on a stage in front of people with an audience when you're alone in your office or at your desk banging your head on the wall. But it's really important to think about the audience experience, because that is really truly what you're engineering. Again, all of this comes from, I need to teach you something. I'm going to impart something very important to you that you will then be able to impart to somebody else. So the whole thing is you are talking to the audience. It isn't art for art's sake. That's not why we exist. And if it feels like that, audiences will start to check out, because evolutionarily they're like, I feel like you're teaching yourself something and I'm not involved. So audiences, that's when something is funny, when something is emotional. That's why we want those things. We crave them. It is the umami. It's the salt and sugar that we are there for, because that's what's going to help us survive. That's how we know what's important. So thinking about, I often find myself having a moment where I'm like, I don't think I've thought about what I want the audience to feel. And when I have, it really changes the writing. And I'm more proud of the moments when I'm like, I want them to gasp, I want them to gasp. They gasp. Yes. That's the best feeling. There's a play of mine called INU, which has two big reveals right at the end, and they're like 60 seconds apart from each other. And if I get both of those, it's just, it is golden. And usually that happens, which is pretty exciting. But it's because I was like, I need to know how to dole out this information in the smallest amount so it is not noticeable, but it is retainable, so that I can say the reason you get a gasp is not because it was a 5-minute expositional monologue that revealed what was going on. It was because I did it in 2 words. And those words meant something because I planted it back here, right? And so all I had to do was say this one thing, which I will not say in case you haven't seen it. Oh, see, there's a secret now. You want to go find out. Yeah, so all you have to do is be brief. It is those words turn into symbols, really, and all I have to do is like do that, and suddenly, get the gasp and the yeah, it's fucking beautiful. So finding that, thinking about the audience's perspective, and I mentioned this earlier, but I will repeat it right now. Audiences really love not being told. They love discovering, coming to their own conclusion, going, I know what's going to happen without somebody saying. So here is what is happening and going to happen, and I'm going to walk you through everything. We have people come to their own conclusions. Now, we know those conclusions. We are engineering those conclusions. But the main thing is to not play down to them and to say what's happening. Unless you're Iago and you're like, no, you want me actually to tell you what's happening because I'm the bad guy and I'm delicious. But yeah, so making sure that the audience gets to put the puzzle together themselves is just more exciting. So the last thing, to jump back up to our theatricality conversation, is part of the world of a play. You have the live audience, yes, very unique. Like, don't discount how unique that is. Anytime that I have included the audience, and there's super cheesy, dumb ways to do it, where you're like, hi, thank you all for coming to my, and then insert something made up, like, thank you for, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example. Maybe my brain is so playwright focused, I can't think of a bad example. That'd be good. Anyway, there's crappy versions where you pretend the audience are like chickens and we are all in a barn and that's why the story is being told. That's a terrible way to do it. But there is a way where you can include them or acknowledge the fact that we all know we're watching a play, right? Like we do know that. We're all here. And sometimes plays can have that moment and they can be really transcendent because especially if we've slipped into that magical theater space and we forget. And then we're like, right. Okay, so that is one part of theatricality. The other thing is ghost ad, which is we can make magical things happen, and they can be very simple. And your whole play can be full of magic if you want. A musical is rather magic. Why are we all singing? Why do we all know the words? Why are we dancing? Who taught us this dance? Right, the entire thing is a fabrication of immense order. And they're gorgeous, and they're beautiful. They can be so moving and so inspiring. But you can also do strange, beautiful things that if you think of them in symbolic terms or metaphorical terms, can be both magical and meaningful. And so oftentimes I have a habit of ending plays in a bit of a kind of transcendent, magical, explosive way. Because I don't really know how to end them otherwise. I find that the endings of plays are the most fictional thing about them because life doesn't end, it keeps going. If you die, it's still going. If this beautiful love story, even if it is as titanic as it feels when you are in the grips of love, everyone else is just going along with their business, right? Nobody else is pausing and like applauding your love story. They're like, to pick up my kid. So the wrapping up, the ending, the kind of, we're done with this story now, we're going to go back outside into the light again. That is the strangest thing about the whole experience. So, for me, the way I manage that is to explore what are the more magical tools. Since it's already a magical thing that we're doing anyway, why not use the tools of theater for magic? And that can be people knowing things they couldn't possibly know if this was naturalism. It can be ghostiness, people, that can't possibly be there. Things can't happen. There's my favorite impossible stage direction is Sarah Rolls, where a character turns into an almond. What does that mean? It's so great. And Paul Vogel has this very famous primer where she asks playwrights to include something impossible in every play. And oftentimes, those are the most memorable, the most extraordinary, the most like, I don't know how this makes so much sense to me, but it does. If we take ourselves out of naturalism, even if we're trying, the goal is to get our audience to go, yes, that's me, I felt that way too. You can have them turn into an almond and everyone goes, I have felt that way too, strangely, how does that work? But it does. So knowing that that's part of, I mentioned it earlier, the magic of writing for theater is because it's simple, because we actually don't need, dragons coming in to feel like there are dragons nearby. You can have all of that happen in a live space. So thinking about theatricality, Aristotle called it like spectacle, which is one way to think about it, but there is just very simple magic that we can employ in our stories to make beautiful meaning, and especially in that symbolic way. The angel in Angels in America is such a perfect example. An impossible thing that is just glorious. And not only like terrifying and beautiful, but lifts that play into this world of impossibility that, especially at that time, that play about gay men dealing with AIDS, and to lift it into this epic space is extraordinary writing, amazing imagination. Anyway, So yes, reminding, this is all just to say, remember you're writing a play. And it may seem like there are strictures on it, which there are, but there's also amazing impossibility. And I will say lots of designers, they're most excited by the crazy stage directions or the crazy settings, because they're like, great, I don't have to do a naturalistic kitchen. No, yeah, take me to some place. Let me do this. I will make you an almond. I will figure that out. Okay, great. It's a lot of me talking. Let's take our half hour now. And so if you can think of, it's kind of a non-specific assignment, but basically what would be helpful to you? Is there more I can go into detail on something, I can plot something out, we can talk very specifically about what is helpful to you, whatever, reading lists. We can also spend some time at the end talking about playwriting business, like what do you do when you have a play? Who do you send it to? How do agents work? All that stuff, if that's helpful at all. And then we'll end at 3:30. So half an hour. Settled. There's a couple, I asked people online if there were any questions, since we are live streaming and taping this, that they had. So I'm going to write those up first, and we can jump to you guys as well. Let me grab these real quick. Friends. Great. So I'm so enjoying this. It always makes me very inspired and excited to just talk about it, because writing is such a solitary thing for so long. To be in a room with other people thinking about the same thing is really exhilarating for me. So thank you. So what did you think about on the break? Let's just start answering questions and making this really, really helpful. I did mention that I got a couple questions from the internet, from people online that we can talk about as well, but I can sprinkle those in with your questions. So let us start with your stuff first, because if you're thinking about it, there's probably a lot of other writers thinking about it. So, anyone want to be brave and go first? Yes, hand up.
So in my play, I have some monologues, and I think they're important because they are about the theme of the play, and this character doesn't really have an opportunity to discuss them with anyone else, so she's like reflecting and figuring it out while she's talking. But I got some feedback that like they were a little too boring, and I just wasn't sure like how much monologue is okay.
Yeah. Take the note. You never want to bore. You just can't do it. It's really not worth any amount of exposition or deep, beautiful poetry, because really the entire point of a play is to be gripping and to be riveting. So I feel like whatever you're accomplishing in that monologue can absolutely be accomplished. And if you put it in there, it is necessary. I'm sure it's necessary. But I think there's going to be a better way. The notorious, I wish I knew who said this, but somebody said that monologues are very easy to write and hard to justify. Because we can wax on, and aren't we intelligent, and oh, this is so beautiful. But it's really hard to justify. And primarily monologues to the general, to oneself, to speaking aloud. So I would say the challenge for you is to up your game and to go, what information in that monologue is relevant? And maybe just have someone there. I mean, sometimes that just makes a monologue into a great scene. If there's just somebody to talk to about it, in whatever form that person might take. So yeah, it doesn't mean the monologues can't be absolutely gripping. I mean, to be or not to be can be super boring, but it shouldn't be, because it is an active thing. Like, he is actually trying to figure it out. And if that's what it is, then there is hope for your monologue. But it just has to be active. It can't be passive, because nothing in a play is passive. Every single thing is the domino tipping it over, even a monologue, even a soliloquy. So what is the domino of that monologue tipping over? And if nothing, if it's just thematic, or if it's just pretty, then yeah, you have to kill that, darling. It's very hard to do. And so, I mean, I've had that happen a lot, where, oh, it's beautiful, oh, but it sets this thing up later, or when I always find a trap in for myself is a joke. I'm like, oh, but then he comes in and he says it about her shoe, that's really funny. And I always have to go, is one moment of laughter worth like the 10 minutes it took to earn that joke? Never, never is it true. So yes, the one thing you can't do is be boring. You can even be confusing for a little while, but you can't bore. Just because why? Why would you do that? There's other things to do. Tony Kushner said that the amount of like boring plays and minutes lost like could equal the weight of like a child on like bad plays. Don't add to that the fictional child's boring life. Don't do it. So yeah, don't work. But again, sometimes just adding another person, adding a stake, adding why they have to do this now, a ticking clock. I have to say this now, or even if to themselves, I have to say that I'm literally going to die in 60 seconds. I have to at least say to myself that I'm proud of that I did this, and I did it. Right, just a little bit of stake, a little bit of you got to do this right now turns what could be like, I will be honest with myself about my feelings, into like go now, immediate, important, critical. So that's it. But a fabulous question. Yeah.
So back to your point about the compression and action and dominoes, my biggest thing is this a one-act play? Is it a 10-minute play? How do you know where you fall and how long should your play be? Because part of the boringness is if you've stretched it out too long and it should have been shorter, right?
Yeah, interesting. Yes, that's a fabulous question. Practically, there are not as many places that fully produce 10-minute plays in one act. There aren't that many because they are short. There are not that many places that fully produce 10-minute plays and one-act plays. Really, most of American theater is full-length plays. So if you are interested in having a play that goes to a lot of places or has full productions with the best actors, write a full-length play. That doesn't mean that there isn't great value in the shorter forms, but it means that you may win a contest or have a reading or have one production, but that's a lot of work and a lot of heart and soul to put into a play that will only be done once or twice. So it really is turning the question into how do you fill up a full-length play with what is the core of your idea. And some plays are just so damn complicated. I think of Robert Jenkins' plays about Lyndon Johnson. There's a lot of history, a lot of character. That belongs in a play. Not even just one, there's two. Two big, huge, beautiful plays. So that's obviously taking history, with putting that on stage. But so how do we make sure that our play is full? And it is definitely true that if you have a play that it's the same character, not learning anything, continuing to do the same thing, not growing, not changing, yeah, that doesn't seem like something for a full-length play. But that's where you have to get, what are the characters that can push, that can challenge, that can represent an alternative opinion? What's the battle that they're in? And then how does the world make it hard for them to achieve something? I think taking your, in conflict, making sure that what they want is hard and urgent and important to them. Just making sure that it really matters and it's a big thing that they're trying to achieve is going to help propel, make it not easy, right? So if Hamlet wanted to kill like a bug for, poisoning his father, then that would be like done. But it's a sitting king with guards and like massive political machine behind him. That's a hard thing to do. Much less, he is not the kind of person that does that, so then I have to try to be that person, right? So there's a lot going on. So just write Hamlet. Just making sure that if you flip the prompt around, how do you fill up a play? And it can still be about the same thing. You can have a 10-minute play about revenging your father's death. And then you can have Hamlet. And I would say, if you have a choice, choose Hamlet. That's a fabulous question. Yes,
Hi. So much of this has helped me really sort of think about things in a way that's actually, now I can actually write a little bit.
Oh, good.
So I'm wondering about other characters and supporting characters. I'm struggling with, how do I think about them? Do they have their own story arcs? Do they, they seem right now to all this to be sort of supporting the main character, but I don't have them as fleshed out. That's a way to kind of get it.
That's a great question. Yes. I mean, the truth is that with your main character, the supporting characters wants, and they all have to have them, and personalities, will be in some way supporting or driving or challenging that main character. So it really is how we are related to each other. What are the things that they share and they differ? But the option, I mean, again, if you think about Hamlet, we have a lot of people at play. Hamlet's mom, we have Ophelia. I always go to the ladies first, of course, to see what they're up to. I mean, Horatio is his friend and helper, and the person that's really, and then Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are coming in an obvious, like, total, ass-kissing people. The king, so there are a lot of things, but all of them are feeding into this, at least, again, if you think about it as a brain, putting on Hamlet's brain, of course everyone is related to my experience of life. That's just how human beings are. We're that kind of patriarchal kind of sense of like, well, it's my experience, and thus everyone is feeding my experience. But in the plays, we actually do craft that. So, I mean, I would say, if you have, not even an antagonist, but a supporting character like Ophelia, she wants, in some versions of her drive, she wants Hamlet. She wants Hamlet's affection. Whether because her father wants it for her, whether because she's supposed to marry him, whether because she actually loves him, we can debate all of that. But the goal of her present moment is like, get Hamlet's love. But Hamlet knows that, and in pursuit of his goal, is using her, totally messes with her, knows that there's one scene where Ophelia is just kind of waiting for him to talk to him, like you do, and the king and Polonius are kind of watching their interaction. It's sort of like, let's watch, just monitor our children. Ophelia is Polonius' daughter. Anyway. And Hamlet just totally fucks with her. Absolutely. This is the whole like nunnery scene and the like throwing her around and like, no, I love you. And he's just like losing it on her. But that is in pursuit of his goal, and she's just kind of swept up in it. So like Raising the Sun has a lot of this, where we see the older son's goal. But that is, comes just crashing in with everyone else has shit going on too. It just kind of funnels into the same thematic pot. So making sure that there are characters that what they want at least comes up tangentially to what that main character wants. That will have reason for them to get in that great scene where the main character is like, you get out of my way, or like, why are you doing this to me? Like just thinking about bursts of drama and then what would justify that burst. And then that can kind of, in my mind, I start to reverse engineer. Like, okay, if I want a big, like, fuck you scene with some slapping, some breaking shit. All right, how do we earn that? What would piss off my main character enough to do that, to make them yell? Even if they're not a yelly person, especially if they're not a yelly person. How do we get a non-yelly person to yell? So really pushing the character to an extreme. And I literally ask myself that sometimes. No one has slapped anyone in this play yet. Where should I put that? It doesn't always necessarily mean an act, but it's a good prompt. Like, what is the scene when someone just loses it? And usually you don't lose it by yourself. You lose it because of somebody else's action, someone's periphery, someone's arrival. But again, you just kind of think, if you're funneling through the main character's trajectory, who's going to get in there? Who's organically going to get in their way? Who has something to lose if the main character gets what they want? Usually the antagonist. We haven't really talked about antagonists, but sometimes I stay away from talking about antagonists because oftentimes you're always fighting yourself. You're always fighting yourself or the world. In like a Iago and Othello, yes, you are fighting each other. But Othello doesn't know that for most of the play. He thinks they're friends, right? So there's sometimes an actual opponent. And even in Hamlet, Claudius is the antagonist, but they're not battling, really. So much of it is in the shadows as Hamlet is trying to figure out how to do, like it's only till the very end that they even have a confrontation about it. So it's not the like Bond villain kind of face-off that some stories are about, which in most of the time it's Hamlet fighting himself, or Hamlet trying to unpack what's to be done and dealing with all those stuff. So anyway, there's a lot of room for great supporting characters. Yes, but they kind of are all folded in on this one trajectory. That's a great question for other people. We go to the internet. Oh, yes.
Can we just go back to the question about the monologue?
Mm-hmm.
And it's specifically about a play, August Osage County,
Yeah.
where there's that long monologue at the beginning.
I know.
And it's like, Did I miss something there? Because I just found that like that would have been a deal breaker if anybody had ever tried to work. It's like, that is awful. How did that
It's
land
brave.
on Broadway?
It's brave. If that person, the person delivering the monologue, the play opens with an older man delivering a monologue, and we come to learn very quickly that the reason everyone is gathering in the house is because the person delivering that monologue has died. That's why it's there. Because to hear the myth of this father is one thing. And there you can make an easy argument where it's greater to imagine something you haven't seen because it adds more power. Like the monster is scarier that you haven't seen than the one you have. But I think it's kind of I don't know, it's brave. It's a beautiful monologue. It is pretty ballsy to start a play with that, with the character we don't ever see again.
Mm-hmm.
One monologue, and you get a really good actor, right? It's one monologue, done. But it is mythic, and the character is a writer, so we're hearing him speak. So that's something of value. But I don't know, I didn't write it, so I'm not sure why. But I think that there is a way to justify it, but I don't know. I would say, as emerging writers, maybe don't do that. Don't start a play like that, because if you're not Tracy Letts, people may not read past that. They'll be like, I'm sorry, you want one actor for that one? No. Nope, sorry, no. But maybe not, I don't know.
I forgot that there's one element is that he is bringing in the character.
Oh, that's right, yeah, she's talking.
And then we see that he's actually trying to plan ahead and look to take care of his wife.
That's right.
And then you see her more sort of monster.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forget that he's introducing the caretaker in that scene, so. I mean, I would trust Tracy Letts, he's pretty damn good. Yeah, John, yeah. I will say that play is pretty extraordinary for many, many reasons, but one of them is it's the only two intermission play I've ever seen where there were standing ovations at each intermission.
Wow.
I mean, literally, immediately leapt to their feet, and I did too. I couldn't help. It was extraordinary. So I got to see the original cast on Broadway, which is theater cred. But that play is really beautiful too because of the exact symmetry of it. We see the house, the beginning of the play. We see it fill up, and we see it empty, like right in the middle. Everyone's there. It's all crazy, and we see the daughter basically becoming the mother. So it's this beautiful, that whole want and need thing, and the equal and opposite. We're literally seeing someone become someone that they hate. And in the end, it's the same person we started with, the caretaker, is the one alone with the mother. And what does she say as she's repeating as she goes up the stairs? I can't remember that beautiful line. Anyway, it's just extraordinary. That's a great one to read. And structurally, it's really beautiful too. Very funny and so just crazy. I thought the incest might have been a little much, but can't have everything. Yes.
What's the time frame for a full-length play,
Sure.
and what would you consider to be too long of a play, like over 2 hours? Or?
Too long is up to debate. Too short is more, where you're going to run across things. Like a one-person play is probably the shortest full-length play you can do because it's one person, so that's probably an hour. Like 70 minutes would be ideal for, or the minimum of that. And then the most, I mean, Tracy Letts' plays probably runs 3.5 hours. Hamlet runs 5. Usually people don't do the full text of Hamlet because it's long. But yeah.
I have a piggyback question on that.
Yeah.
So for a play with more than one actor, 3 or 4, that kind of thing, is there kind of like, there's a certain length where it's a one act,
Yeah.
and then producers go, then there's a certain length, well, that does meet the minimum amount of
Yeah.
space where people are going to say, I had an evening at the theater.
Yeah.
Is there a sense of,
Yeah, I'm not a producer, so I don't exactly know, but I can sniff it out.
yes,
I would say 80 minutes is minimum. And there's an ideal play in some, New York has a great taste for this, but then it'll do something like Oslo, and that becomes the toast of the town, so it's totally full of contradictions. But one very happy thing, certainly as a theater goer, I love a 90-minute play straight through, no intermission. I feel like I've gone to the theater, but I haven't had the entire evening at the theater. Plays start at like 8, like a 2.5-hour play. I'm home at like 11, midnight. Oh Lord, you guys, come on. So 90 minutes straight through is one very popular form. But 90 minutes straight through can only hold so much story, if you have like 15 characters in a 90-minute play, it better be a farce, because that's a lot of people to like feel like you've had a meaningful character. Yeah, but I think about 80, 90 minutes as the minimum of a full-length play.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
but there's just as many theaters that do 2-act plays and theaters like an intermission practically to sell some beverages. And you can do a lot. I mean, I think both, if you are writing a 2-act play, make intentional use of that intermission. That is, you gotta like hit the gas right as you're blacking out so that people just go, oh, have to see the next act, right? You don't want to be like, oh, that was not, oh, there's another act? Oh, right, we don't want that. So making sure that you're ramping things up at the intermission. Yes?
So back, well, two things. I find it really interesting when you go into the theater and they purposely tell you there's no intermission. Because I feel like it messes with my mind about how I'm going to experience the story. I don't really want to know. I just want to sit down and if it's an intermission, I'll figure it out because they'll say it's an intermission. But it seems a little intrusive to announce it one or the other. That's just my thing. But also in terms of the 2-act play, how do you know it's not 3 acts? Because with your thing there, it's like the conflict and then the end. So when does it become a 3-act play? You have 2 conflicts.
Yeah, you can add as many of these as you want. It could be, I mean, Hamlet's 5 acts, so each one ends with a like, oh, that's new, oh, that's different. In John York's book, Into the Woods, he talks about a 3-act structure. Again, he's writing mainly movies, but his act kind of goes like, if this is the play, these are the acts, and this would each have a kind of act break moment, a big shift, a big surprise, a big element. So yeah, first, second, third. But again, that's movies. Yes, so you can really do whatever you want. It's I would say there's the practical answer of making it a play that people will go, yes, I can and want to produce that. Sometimes they want to, but they can't. Is it 6-act play? Oh my God, how many characters? Oh, I love this play, but that's gonna break our bank. Or, oh, I love it, but it's like 55 minutes. I can't ask somebody to pay $30 to see, you know, those are super practical things, but I think a smart playwright should know the whole point is to get your play produced so we can have the incredible magic of an action. I mean, that's the point of a play, right? Not
But
to,
you can have a long 2-act play.
you can.
Or the same long, it's in 3 acts. That's
Indeed.
where I'm kind of.
Yeah, I will say there is some, much like when your reaction to being told that there's intermission, sometimes seeing that there's 2, people are like, fuck, I am. So when I see that there's no intermission, I'm like, yes, home by 10. I do have 2 small kids, so forgive me for being flip about it. But then a play like August County happens, there's 2 acts, and I'm like, it ends, and I'm like, more, give me more. So sometimes, again, that play is like one plot point after another. It is the runaway train that you just can't get enough of. Like the dog out the window, like, yay! So write that play, and it can be as long as you want. But I think it really is up to you. At a certain point, it's artist discretion. I think the question for the artist is, what are you doing with those intermissions? Is it like a massive costume shift, like we really do need a solid 10 minutes for the crew to come in and change things, which that doesn't necessarily need to happen. You can, if you're Berkeley rep, you can have turntables and massive, you know, and suddenly the set's changed in 2 seconds, you don't need intermission. So it really is more artistically, what are you doing in that intermission? Like some of the plays of mine that are 1 acts, or, you know, not what they are full-length plays, but they do not have an intermission, is because I feared putting an intermission in them would break the magic. And there's a few of them where if you go out and start thinking and talking about it, you're going to come back in being like, I have a question, instead of like, I can't wait to see what's next. So staying in the magic for some of them was really, really important. And then sometimes you want that beautiful break. Sometimes it is a time thing. Even oddly, we can see like a 3.5-hour movie and there's no like intermission in a movie. Right. But we expect one after about an hour.
So are you saying that without an intermission, it's by default a 1-act play because there's no break?
No. It's a full-length play. I just call it a 1-act sometimes because it is one chunk without a break. But even without an intermission, you still need this midpoint, this like wah moment. You don't get to go buy some Snickers afterwards. You just have to like keep going. That dynamism, keep it rolling. So yeah, but it really is, in many ways it's up to you. and kind of your common sense and what is good for your story. But yes. Yes.
Good. Can you talk about the idea of an anti-hero and how that can sort of fit into the role of the protagonist?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think most heroes these days are anti-heroes. It's not Greek, so we don't have the golden Antigone, perfect. Everybody's flawed and messed up. And there's anti-hero that is the complexity of the natural human experience, and then there's an anti-hero where they're actively bad and we are rooting for them. Both are interesting and useful. And in some ways, Othello should be called Iago for that reason. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I again feel like most of what makes a hero interesting is what is non-heroic about them, or the protagonist. Hero, sometimes those are interchangeable. Wow, markers everywhere. Protagonist and hero can kind of be interchanged, but hero does have this, gallant quality to the word itself. So anyway, when I think of an anti-hero, I'm like, yeah, you're flawed. And there's the main character of my play I and You, which premiered here, is very anti-heroic. In fact, we can talk about that feminist word, likable, because there was a lot of criticism that she's a 17-year-old girl who is suffering from a disease that means that she can't go to school, so she is in her room there, super pissed about everything, distrustful, unhappy, and people were like, well, she's just unlikable. I just don't really like her. I'm like, yeah. Well, I wouldn't like me either if I was a shut-in thinking I'm going to die next week. Like, yeah, that's, And again, is Lear likable? Is Hamlet like, oh, no. But they are heroic, they are protagonists. So anyway, but the anti-heroism of her means, frankly, all of your heroes should start that way if they are, in the end, going to be people that we want, that we believe in, because we got somewhere to go. This is that opposition, too. In some ways, the structure of plays has to be, this is our baseline of like happy, it's like both happy, but equally happy and sad, like just chill. If your play is gonna end as a tragedy, like somewhere along the line, we gotta be up here. It can't go like that. That's actually Trojan women, which is just, it's one awful thing. It starts terrible and it just gets, how does it get worse? But it does. I love that play, actually. Sorry, everybody's. But no, plays don't do that. Similarly, you can't just be happy to happy, because then what? Congratulations on your magical life. No. So if we're going to end here, we need some version that we start there, or if we start pretty bad, we're going to end up happy. Now you can have all the way in there. And you can actually go from happy to happy, but you can't go straight across. You can go, oh shit, everything's bad. No, it's fine, hey. But you kind of have to have some opposition. We can't just go straight across. And frankly, even if you go to like, oh, things are slightly unpleasant to happy, that's not satisfying. It's like slightly unpleasant is the worst you get. Come on. Anyway, so finding the kind of opposition factor can help you craft somebody. And I say that because in I knew that at the end they were going to learn from each other. And this person who is going to feel like, I want to live. I'm going to choose to be in this world and not to reject everything because I feel like the world's against me. I have this amount of hope. The window is open that big to hope. And I'm like, yep, I see it, okay. But in order to do that, we got to start where she is like, fuck this, fuck everything and everybody. I don't care. She can actively say, just kill me, I'm almost dead anyway. And she means it. Now she knows, she's kind of a brat, so she can like throw that out there and know that it's like a bomb going off. But she can say that at the beginning, at the end she cannot say that, and she does not. So that's change, right? So this is part of when we think about the features of our character, their facade. Part of what she has is she's all facade at the beginning, and that starts to crumble. And when your facade crumbles, there is this naked vulnerability there. And either you can honor it and be like, I will be vulnerable, knowing that there is value in sharing that part of myself, honestly, or I can build that wall right back up. So thinking about it in terms of where you're going, you have to start in some version of its opposite during the story, which helps with anti-heroes. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I was itching.
Nope, cheering. Yes, I love it. It's great. Very active.
But yeah, I was going to ask about time. If you're doing a non-linear timeline,
yeah.
Sort of, what's your process
Yes.
with that? Do you write it all out in the correct, in a linear form and then
That's a
mess it
great
up? Or do
question.
you, because
Yeah.
obviously you still want these same,
Yeah.
points.
You have to
like
hit
that.
the same emotional points,
It's just
but
about,
Yeah.
the order in which they come, because I've been writing and play for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I've written about half of it, and
yeah,
the
great.
basic
That's the
flat.
half you were meant to
Yeah, exactly. The
What's this
basic
half?
structure of it was that, it starts with the scene that would be the end of the first half,
Uh-huh.
and then it goes backwards in time to the scene that would be the start of the first
Yeah,
half, in a linear thing. And then after the interval, you're in the scene immediately after the scene that was in the first
Yeah.
scene.
Great.
So it goes then linear from the start of the second half to the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, I think audiences are pretty. They have fortitude
Yeah.
for strange structure. I mean, if there's an emotional journey
Yeah.
that makes organic sense, then we can go anywhere and everywhere.
Mm.
I think it's finding that emotional moment. So again, if you think about that act break, what is it about that flip in time
Yeah.
that is the big surprise? That is the thing we're all dealing with.
Yeah.
You know what I
Because
mean?
it does go quite, in my head it goes quite different.
In the
It's
second.
yet to be written. But
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of what happens in the second half is all in one location,
Great.
rather than the previous half of the play, which is kind of various locations and different characters, and
Yeah,
it sort of comes more to a head.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a neat structure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, again, you can jump all over.
Yeah. But
If
have you written plays that mess around with time? stuff,
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, there was one that went totally backwards. Semi-successful. But at the very end, we catch up to the present time. I think just the audience needs to know when it's real time.
Yeah.
So yeah, as long as that's clear. And I kind of like the idea of a second act that's dedicated to a linear
Yeah.
thing, because it's a different set of rules. But anyway, yes. And I will say one big moment in a play of mine, a historical play called Bower, was there is this secret it's just something that is unspoken for the beginning. It is known and is unspoken, and it's too sensitive, it's too traumatic to talk about. But at a critical moment, at about this-ish moment, that's when the memory just envelops him. Like he can't avoid going back into that space, which for him was a prison in 1938 Germany. So you might imagine, pretty terrible. So having that moment and even just touching that memory is so valent to him that the audience kind of goes with us in that moment. And this play does this maybe 3 times, but that's the middle one.
Yeah.
Is that the scariest moment, and him acknowledging the fear is part of the tool he gets in that scene.
Yeah.
Which if you do think about it, like old school Zelda or something, like gaming, where you go through a little world or a scene or something, you get something. Like the scene isn't over until you get the coin or the tool or the sword or the whatever. And that's kind of what every scene is about. So as long as there's something gained that in the dramatic structure helps that domino fall,
Yeah.
then it can be in whatever times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. When is the time period that you do?
Yeah, but very much present day. Yeah, it's
Present day.
Nothing fancy going on with that. We're not
Yeah.
in space or anything.
Yeah. But we go back to like far in history, or we go
It's
back
only
to,
like
10 years ago or something.
it's only sort of it's probably a couple of months like.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
I was wondering about going on a timeline where you're going through long lifetime, say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've done
Do you have
those.
any tips for kind of moving things, jumping, or?
Yes. Are they though? I've done it a few times. I love stories about history. I do think theater is time travel. I mean, we actually get to go back to a place and see the worlds, the fashion, all that. And I think people really like, if it's based on a true story, there's some extra electricity to something that's true that we can go Google when we get home or read in the program or something. So I'm a big fan of the history play, as was Mr. Shakespeare, so whatever he does, we can definitely do. So go ye to history. Yeah, I mean, I will say the thing that is most critical is to make sure that we, similarly in this structure, what is the big turning point of that person's life? And if it's a whole life, there might be a lot of those big things, but it's your job to figure out, to distill and essentialize what are the moments, the critical moments. So looking like the musical Hamilton, you know, we see those critical moments, and frankly, there's some wars going on. There's the big one that they won. But it's the heartbreak. It's the relationship with his son and his wife that are the big active moments. So again, that's personal, that's bite-sized. So it's not about American history, it's about this guy named Alexander Hamilton who had some shit going on. So making sure that it really is about that person, and finding the most heartbreaking, triumphant things. I've written a lot of plays about scientists in history. And there's always the, where do we put the eureka moment? And most of them are in the, right in the middle, first eureka moments. And then the end is really oftentimes more of like, well, achievement isn't the point of a life. You know, you don't take your Nobel Prize with you. So what is the thing, whatever their life is about, what are the things that perhaps in their achievement or in their achieving, in their sciencing, in their warring, did they perhaps leave behind? And for Alexander Hamilton, his wife, right? He's so smart and so this and this powerful and whatever, and it's the relationship with his wife that he both totally fucks up, and then it is essential to his survival that she is there. And then at the end, of course, she's the one being like, I told your story. They were going to forget you, but so the real point of history is finding those critical moments, and making sure those are the critical moments of your play, and then figuring out maybe you don't need their entire life. Like, are we meeting them at 5 years old, or are we meeting them at 25? And you know, sometimes you can use the magic of theater. At the end of a play of mine, Silent Sky. Sorry to talk about my play so much, but I'm just like, I've made it work in this play. Maybe it'd be helpful to you. A play, Silent Sky, is a historical play set in 1900 about a female astronomer. And at the very end, she dies right before they were going to give her a Nobel Prize. But you can't get what you did, so anyway. But it's an amazing story, and the end of the play kind of has in this like transcendent thing. I don't know how to end plays except for like setting them like off like fireworks and just having them go. So at the end, she describes in a way that I planted earlier this idea of mass and energy kind of being interchangeable, that one becomes the other. That's like history of physics. So they talk about the mass and energy shift into being each other. So that's how she describes her own death, like I shifted. So without saying, and I died. Again, planting that imagery here means all I have to do is have her say, and then I shift. And the audience is like, oh. Right. So just, again, a point for symbolic language. It's very helpful. And at the end, she describes basically all the science that she will never know, or she could never know. And so we get a sense of what her discovery was in the history of science, but then she's like, and we land on the moon, and this and that, and the other things. And we go, you know, through the history of science, impossibly, and she just says it, like she knows it, but of course she died way before we built the bomb and went up to the moon and internet-y things. So anyway, but there's this very simple magic of just having someone say something they couldn't possibly know that we go, oh. Anyway, so that's one way to deal with history. Is you can have some magic that helps you contextualize or end, or like, what did this mean in the rest of history? You know, kind of walk away wanting to know that. But that was somewhat helpful. Yeah.
When you are creating your characters, do you spend much time building their backstories?
No.
Mm-hmm.
If I come up against something in writing it that I go like, oh, if somebody had this background, they would think differently about this. Then I can kind of let myself explore or decide. It's really about deciding. So much of this is making a damn decision. And when you get to that 30-page point, you're like, oh, I don't know what happens next. Of course, because you haven't decided. So it's similarly, I haven't decided until I need to decide. And I have now trained myself to go, make a decision, girl. You cannot move past this point. You cannot finish that scene, thus finish the act, thus finish the play, if you do not decide a thing. So it sounds like duh, you have to, but it's so easy for us to go like, oh, I just don't know, I don't know, it'll come to me. No, it won't, just decide, just decide. So I often talk about, a couple of my other classes are about specifically thinking about the ending before this, certainly before the midpoint, but even before this sometimes, that the sooner you think of the ending, which I will clarify in a second, but the sooner you think of the ending, the sooner you can figure out how the hell to get there. Right? It's like any point on a map. You're like, I think I'm going to go there, and I'm here, so I will figure out how to do that. Now, it doesn't mean you can't and get lost or, whatever, change your course. But we expect writing the play to be the same experience as watching one, meaning we get there when we get there. Oh, look, we're at the ending. Oh, no, it's totally the opposite for writers. We go, I know where we're going, and I'm not going to tell anyone until we get there. But I know the whole time. There's no surprise that is like, gasp! To me, no, I'm designing it. I'm making it surprising. I'm not like finding it. Now, there is sometimes a fun moment when you're in the shower and I'm like, oh my God, he could be her father. Oh, that's a good idea. Right? That's the closest I get to the actual experience of an audience in a play. But so the exercise of making yourself think about the ending is one of the biggest revelations I've had in playwriting. So it might be helpful for you too. That now the clarification is you don't have to know every single thing about the ending to write, because we would never get there. But having a sense of where you're going, i.e. in a love story, are they going to get together? There's kind of two choices. In the case of Hamlet, I will pretend to be Shakespeare for a moment. Deep apologies to everyone. But the idea of going, okay, Shakespeare's like, it's Hamlet's story, revenge for his father's death. The question I have to ask myself right now before I've even started is he going to get revenge? I'm going to say yeah. Let's go with yeah. And we can write this whole thing, knowing that that's where we're going. And then in that sword fighting scene, when he's like, cool, sword fight, that's such a good idea. We'll do this, we'll add some poison, yeah. He crafts that moment, the king's to blame. And then in that moment, even though his writing is not having to change at all, he can extrapolate in the scene and make it that much richer, that much gorier, that much more like, oh my God, we're gonna kill the queen, we're gonna kill everybody. Everyone's dying. Maybe he didn't even know Hamlet's gonna die. I mean, it's a tragedy, so we probably did. But if he gets to the end, we could have, again, as Hamlet said, the king's to blame, Hamlet could just be like, peace, I win. And off he goes, or whatever, or like, I'm king now, bitch. Either one is fine, or he could die and murder and then die. The other way around, murder and then die. So anyway, all of these decisions, trying to take away the fear of having to have a perfectly constructed ending before you write, in order to play the game of, but where am I going? But just where am I going? Because that's what happens, why ending the first 30 pages are really easy to write, because it's all like throwing stuff in the pot. You're not making anything yet until you go to the end and you're like, this was supposed to be a souffle and it is not. Right, so we have to go, you can put a lot of ingredients in and you get stopped when you have to make the decision of like, but what is it? What am I making? You can't just end up with the souffle. You're like, no, that was the plan. Anyway, so that is an argument for playing out a structural sense, while still knowing that there is freedom there to discover things, to go, oh my God, it's not his story, it's her story, shit. Okay, I'm going to keep most of it, but I'm rearranging it so that it's Juliet's story instead of Romeo's, right? You can have that revelation halfway through and still salvage your play. Anyway, so that is, it will also help you finish it. Like, that's the goal, right? Once you get one draft, which I'm in this process right now, where I just, finally wrote the damn thing. And then, yes, it's missing whole chunks of things that I am excited to put in. It's missing this whole character, where I just added a brand new character that solves some fun issues. There's a lot of, this is too long, that's too short, this isn't funny enough, that's like distractingly weird, all this stuff, but it is there. It is a play, it's a thing, it says the end at the end. So now, I get to stretch this out, I get to work with this actor to go, okay, tell me what I'm not seeing in this character. I get to work with a director and a dramaturg that ask amazing questions, but you can't do that until you have the thing. So really, not to freak you out, but so much of playwriting happens once you already have the play. Once you have the play, that's when you get to the part that makes theater, which is collaboration. You're in the room with actors and directors, designers, so many people, board members in the audience. Like, there's a lot of people that affect the way a play is. That's what play development is. So it's very unlike a novel in that way, where you're like, this is done. And there's editing, maybe some conversation, but it's not like you try it out and you have people reading it for you, and so really that's part of why I encourage you to kind of like just get it down. It can be messy, it can not be right, but it can't be good or great until it's a thing, and then we make it. That's kind of the magic of theater. So that's my long diatribe about figure out the ending as soon as you can. Yes. Hi.
You mentioned having small children.
Yes.
I have a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old.
Oh,
Would you talk a bit about things you've learned about making that work?
Yeah.
continue with playwriting?
Yes, my children are exactly the same age apart as yours. I have 3 and a year and a half. You just need a lot of help. And you need time to yourself. I mean, it's a room of one's own. It's the same thing it's always been for women. We just need time to go, my writing is actually just as important as the dishes getting done. So somebody else can do that. Please? I will beg or pay for people to do that. Yeah, I mean, it is a moment, and good job for being here, because if my 6th month, I would not be here, so bravo to you. Yeah, I mean, it's critical to be able to define your self-worth. I mean, that's really what it is. And it's so easy for particularly women to put what is important to us at the very bottom of the list of things to get done. So good job for not doing that. Yeah, I found when my babies were really small, I would talk plays out to them, knowing that they couldn't give feedback, but I would be like, the activity of describing the play to a like burbling 4-month-old was actually helpful. And I will tell you why, because oftentimes when you have to articulate your play as just like a shitty short story or a paragraph, man, it clarifies things really quickly. So the more I talk to my husband or my friends or my mom, I've done this 1,000 billion times to my mother and father, where I just have to be like, okay, I'm telling you, I'm writing a play, and it's as I'm saying what it's about and who's in it, I realize I haven't mentioned the main character once. Like I talk about everything else, I'm like, oh, maybe not be their play then, or I said it was a love story. Is this a love story? I said it was. That was the first thing I said. That's so weird, right? So even taking it out of its own form for a second can be really clarified, even to a tiny baby. Yeah, and I've learned, I haven't been able to take I took Charlie once to the theater. We're still getting into the process of going to the theater. He's a little wiggly and a little loud and a little opinionated, so not unlike somebody you might know. So anyway, yes, good luck, and I've heard it gets better or different every couple months. So I'm in it with you. I mean, it's just frankly hard to be away, so that's been a big challenge for me is being insistent upon theaters that instead of a bunch of talkbacks that I go to the middle of nowhere for, I can Skype in, I can always just Skype. Hi, then I'm there and have the talkback, but it doesn't burn their time and mine and money, etc. And that's worked somewhat for rehearsals. My second was born right as he was small enough that I really couldn't leave to be a part of the first production of Book of Will in Denver. So I was there for the first like 5-6 days, and then that second to third weeks. Second and third week, I was able to they had this awesome setup where I could just click on and see rehearsal. It was pretty great, and it really worked actually. So that was confirming. But you know, theater's live; you're supposed to be there. So there's only so much you can do online. But it is good now. There is a lot more awareness of motherhood in theater, and that is very helpful to all of us. I mean, this theater is great. Like everyone has kids or knows them or generally likes them. So I felt very supported here. Which is good. So find your people. All right, let me do some internet questions too. This one was really good. Somebody from Twitter asked about how do you keep tension high, or like, yeah, just making sure that there's tension in the play, knowing that tension is what is driving plot and conflict, like equal and opposite, right? The reason why there's tension there is equal and opposite. If it's not equal, then suddenly there's no tension because there's nothing there. So that really is what it is. It's about stakes, making sure that something is at risk. Something can be lost. If this ball is dropped, something's gonna go by the wayside. So stakes and making sure that there is that there's care. Like they have to care a lot, because otherwise, there's no tension if nobody cares. So it's still going back to all the other things we've said about it has to be urgent now, interesting. People are people with interests. Just making sure that. It matters. Like everything matters. Did you answer the phone? Why didn't you answer the phone? What's that mean? I mean, like little things have to matter too, to keep that attention. And of course, changing. So things that matter to that person, where something could be lost because of that, and there are things changing constantly, means that you don't get to rest, right? Because it's now changing. I just had that under control, but now it's changing. And I care. Now I'm caring about right. So that's how we keep tension high. This is great for comedy and for drama. Comedy is very funny because things are going wrong. Yes.
Along that line, I'm just kind of wondering, I have no children and never have, and I can't imagine, I mean, I have enough trouble finding writing time, and I have a pretty easy life with just my four-legged child.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if that doesn't sort of apply to tension, because I look back on my life when I was working, I'm now long time being retired, but there is a certain tension, I think. I mean, I would think if you had children that it's like, okay, he's napping, the babysitter's here with the other one, I have an hour, I have 2 hours. And that I'm wondering if that doesn't set up some tension.
Yes, and clarity.
That's much more productive.
That's exactly what happens.
Creative work than saying, oh, I'll take a walk,
I have
and
a
I
week.
can do it this afternoon.
I have 3 hours. Yeah, no, I have done a rewrite of an entire play in like the 2 hours I had, because I was like, burn through it, girl. Yes, I have found that to be true of motherhood. It's not altogether pleasant, but it does feel like a superpower. You just only have the time that you have. Yeah. But that also means that I can stop the voice in my head, which I'm pretty good at shutting up at this point in my career, but still is there sometimes of like, I don't know if you're ready, I don't know if you figured it out yet. I don't know, just wait, I don't know, think about it some more. You can't fix it until you're in it, fixing it. So it makes me sit the hell down and write. Although I really like writing, so I do look forward to a cup of coffee, 8 a.m. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not like, it's not working, half the time, but I enjoy solving the mystery of it, and like, it's like a puzzle to me, going like, there's a piece, where's the piece, where is it, it's an edge piece. Just figuring out how to put it together. But yes, productivity.
Yeah, my questions are, I guess, right now about the business side of things.
Sure.
About agents and the alternatives of having agents, of working with a lawyer instead, or other kinds of things, and your experiences of talking about money with theaters and residuals and all of this kind of stuff, and because you're kind of a bibliography kind of mind, if there are any key resources, websites, books,
Sure.
etc.
I would say what you if you were serious about this, which assuming you all are, because you're here, join the Dramatist Guild. They have a service that has sample contracts. They have people to help in that regard if you are not represented. So the Dramatist Guild, yay, Dramatist Guild. I've been a member since I was like 18. It's self-membership, so you don't have to earn anything or even have written anything to join. It's an amazing guild, and they have a publication that's really useful, interviews with playwrights, and really cool stuff about both business, legal, and art, practical stuff. And whenever you're in New York, you can go by their offices in Times Square and feel very fancy. And they have really cool opportunities for young writers and various different things there. They also have members and meetings in every single city, including ours. So once a month, once every quarter or something, there's a meeting of other writers that are guild members here, which is really cool. And you can do this and be around them. So they will help legal stuff until you have an agent representation. The truth about agents is that they'll come to you. You can't really go to them. I mean, you can, but it's a waste of your time. And you don't need one to get a career started. I didn't have one. So they will come to you, and that's how you know that you found a good match. You are appreciated. And it will also, you won't be surprised when they come. Like before, you'll be like, why aren't they coming? And then you'll be like, oh right, I won this big award and now they're all coming. Or that big production, or had this big commission, or was part of a big reading series. That's what happened to me. I was part of a big reading series at South Coast Rec, which has a big new play thing every summer, spring. So yes, so they will come to you, which is frustrating in that you can't really do anything about it, but is also not frustrating in that, like, screw it, keep doing your thing. You don't have to worry about them, they'll come and find you. And agents are marvelous people and are very practical when I'm not. And some are like great dramaturgs and will give me great inspiration and ideas, and they're also really good at helping kind of know what the landscape of theater is like. New York really likes these kind of plays right now, and regionally they really like those. And so that's just helpful to be in conversation with them. So they're lovely, but they are unnecessary for the first part of a career, or if you're not represented yet, if you're not. The best thing you can do is write amazing plays. But they will come to you usually after a major commission, award, or production. So aim for those things. Spend your time, don't worry about the agents, spend your time finding those opportunities. So submitting, there's a ton of ways to get your play out there, if we're ready to talk about this too, once it's lovely and written. I mean, things like the O'Neill, like the Bay Area Playwrights Festival, there's a ton of new play festivals, and they are literally asking, please send us your plays. there may be 1,000 submissions, 2,000 people who send their plays to them to be considered. But they are saying, send me your plays. So that's great news. Certain theaters like this one and others in the area that you know, sometimes they'll only send 10 pages of the play, which is kind of, let's just be honest, it's a little useless to send your play just, here is a play. You don't know me, I'm sitting it to your theater. It is very unlikely that it will land up on the main stage in a full production. But there's a new play contest at Marin Theatre Company. There are two. One for totally unproduced playwrights, the Colicchio Sky Cooper prizes. And they are similar. You apply and we can't wait to read your new play. So apply for things like that. That's how you start a relationship with various companies. Berkeley Rep has this too. I mean, there's a lot of places. So all you really need is a foothold in one of those, one or two people, and be like, yeah, that's a good voice. Or I can't produce this play, but what are you writing next? Or let's do a reading of your play, and have that build into other relationships. That's how I did it, and there's some great resources. The Dramatist Guild also has what is called the Dramatist Sourcebook, which is for free if you're a guild member. And it is what it sounds like. It's both online in like a searchable database and an actual book, for those of you old school folks. And it has a list of every theater company and every award or every opportunity for playwrights that you can just go through, as I did when I was like 16, and I was like, submit it. It's very Hermione about it, so you too can sit with a highlighter, old school style, and submit everything. But it turned into a career. I mean, it honestly started with my little baby Dramatist Guild membership and that book, so anything's possible. I don't know how that turned in from your question into that, but there you go.
How
Go
did you
Guild.
start writing the play so young?
I wanted to be an actor, and then it occurred to me that that is not where the power lies. Sorry, the godlike power is with writers. We get to decide who wins and what the story's like, and get to write more plays that I wanted to see, which included parts for women. Didn't see a ton of those, especially for young women at the time, which was deeply self-serving because I was a young woman. But then it occurred to me, like, oh right, in Hamlet, there's so many people, and yet there's two ladies, both die. And even in Romeo and Juliet, and I was like, that's like 3 ladies. 2 die. I think one, at least, anyway. Yeah, so it occurred to me, like, write the thing that you want but you don't see. That's a good lesson. Actually write it, get all the way to the damn end. Only get better from there. And submit. Yeah. All right, yes.
So your point about the production part, once you get it done, how much do you find plays change once you get it in theater and the actors and everybody's talking about it? Does it,
So much.
So is it radical? Like, I thought this was a comedy and that's a tragedy.
No, not that would be radical. No, but it can be like the second act is totally wrong. And I'm just gonna change the ending. I've done that a few times. I had a I think this is actually her story moment. It was the other way around, it was his story, not hers. Because I was being a feminist, I was like, it's her story, damn it! And I was like, ah shit, no it's his. Made a better play. But yeah, there can be, and sometimes it's just having a smart person read it. For Miss Bennett, when we were writing it, I wrote it with my co-writer Margaret Milcon. And the first time we wrote it, it was like fine, but it became this whole other beautiful thing when we had one note from this great collaborator who is a director and an artistic director out of Minneapolis, Sarah Rasmussen, and she was like, yeah, the thing in any Jane Austen love story is that the love halfway through becomes impossible. Just absolutely will never, ever happen. And so we were like, oh right, our love is inconvenient halfway through, but it's not like all is lost. Yeah, never gonna happen. So we had to, that's when we invented this character, and it became like the best role in the whole play. And it's so juicy and good. Anyway, and we're writing a companion piece now that's like basically about the other characters in that story. So anyway, all that is to say that sometimes in a reading, certainly happens in a reading, but even in production, ideally not like before opening night, you don't write a new ending, but oh god. But yes, so it really is, it's critical because you see it, and there's rhythm things, which, oh yeah, I can talk about that. That was an internet question. Rhythm things become very clear. If a monologue is just too long, what? I checked out like 5 minutes ago when you were still talking. So that kind of stuff, if comedy doesn't work, it's real obvious real quick, and usually that's because you're talking too much. Like, shut up and let the rhythm, that's all in the timing, as I say. That's very true. Yes, you learn so much so quickly if people are, if you've given them, oftentimes you've given them too much to say. It's actually way better if they don't. Yes, but you learn all of that in the room, and so I've developed this process that's kind of unique. Not just to me, but it's not very, it's more rare than other playwriting processes, but because I'm a resident playwright here, one of the kind of gifts I've given myself is every couple months I get the same group of actors together, and we work on this play that I'm writing. And the first couple times I didn't know which play I was writing, so I like brought in some scenes from this one, some scenes from this one, and like I told them we were going to be doing the same play. We'd meet every couple months and do the same play, and then I'd bring in a whole different play, which was, they were like, oh, okay. But it became so active and so inspiring that the more I got in the rehearsal, the more the plays grew. And so it was like fertilizer. It was just, things shot into being. And so now there's like 1.5 plays already, and we're, you know, it's very, very active. So getting in the room with them, you learn so much so quickly, especially with smart actors, which most of them are. And you get to ask the questions, like, what is the thing in this play that you haven't done yet that you feel like your character needs to do? And that could be slap somebody, my favorite. Or it could be honest, like literally she's never honest with herself. And so that gives me, a playwriting brain just goes like, oh, I know how to write that scene, I know. So the whole point is getting in the room, and you can't get in the room until you have the thing. Or unless you're a weird resident playwright and just insist that actors come together and read random scenes. So yes. All right, there's a, yes.
I have a question about characters and writing who the character is. There's a tension between specificity. I want this character to be a Haitian American man, and producibility, and if you over-specify your sort of set of collection of things, like how, I'd just like to hear you talk about managing that tension.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like when you say they're Chinese American, can a Korean American person play it? Or is that like, well, they're not Chinese American. Can you say, you know, how general can you be for casting wise? How specific do we need to be to honor the integrity of a culture? And so I think it depends on why they are what they are. If it is for diversity's sake, then you can indicate in a different, more general way about diversity. If it's specifically necessary that they are Haitian, then it can be a conversation. I think you write exactly what the story needs, and then in casting conversation and producing conversations, we can say, well, I know there's only so many actually Haitian American actors, so we can use African American, or we can use Dominican, or whatever. So yes, some of those conversations you can have outside of the writing of the play, just in the producing of it. But I would always say write what is specifically necessary for the story, and we can generalize in terms of casting later. But yeah, always be specific. And if you're just because you're like, no, I'm Haitian, maybe you can be a little bit more flexible in the script.
I just had a situation with a play in which I said, in my head they were Haitian, but it didn't matter. So I wrote them down and I said, any race. And then I got an Indian American actor. And that did not work.
Yeah, interesting.
Because there was a discussion about Indian food, which if they were not Indian, it was about the character who was speaking, and because they were Indian, it was suddenly about the character they were speaking to.
Yeah, interesting.
And it was...
Yeah, specificity is good for those things. Yeah, there's only so much. Like in the play, some of my history plays, I indicate that there can be as diverse and should be as diverse casting as possible, because certainly plays about Shakespeare's for everybody, Jane Austen for everybody. Please don't send me a wall of white people. But in specific culturally written plays, yeah, I think you need to own it. And I think sometimes it will affect its producibility, but oftentimes not. I mean, people will just go, great, so we'll find an American actor, we'll find a Haitian actor, we'll find a, whatever. They're out there. So I'd say, and oftentimes that means that you're writing for an underserved population anyway. So this is great. Now there's a play with a character written for them. Holy shit. Right, so that's always good. Okay, I will add, one of the internet questions was about dialogue and how to make it sound organic and stuff like that. And it occurred to me because what we were talking about with rhythm, what you find out of the room. So much of human interaction is rhythm. and it's actually not what you're saying. It's how you're saying it, what you're not saying, and sometimes even it can be like just noise to serve a point. The description that I often use is I kind of have roller coasters within scenes and within plays of mine, and that's because the speed and the clip of the language actually does more to indicate that there is a conflict than the words themselves. And so I will even structure it where it looks like Shakespeare does this, where the lines are indented across the page, they kind of stair-step down. He does this in Macbeth and a lot of his plays, and that indicates that it is one line that 3, 4, or 5 people are saying, but it should feel like all one line, as opposed to It has to be like da, 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 da. So that rhythm and the sound and the general escalation of noisiness puts our audience in a place that is like this, which does more. Oftentimes in those scene-lets, they are, you don't even hear what they're saying. It's just, they could be talking about anything, but it's the moment that it goes, this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, wait, I'm just trying to say. So whatever is the peak of that indicates to the audience, this is an important thing. Somebody has been pressed to the point of admitting something, acknowledging something, challenging something, right? So the peak of that argument, the kind of ski jump moment of it, you can put something very valuable right there, something very real, something very important to the scene. And it's because the way the scene has gone, we're learning things and we're finding, and then it's really turning into something that's boom. I have to tell you this. Shut up so I can tell you, right? And then that is a great moment for the actors and the audience, because we're all in it together waiting like, oh, you like yelled. Okay, this is an important thing. So things like that, in terms of dialogue, the rhythm of a dialogue can do a lot. There's another thing that I do in my scripts, which you are welcome to borrow or iterate on. Other people do it too. So normal line is like that. That's just normal speaking. This is my crappy version of italics, which is a little bit more intense. Like you're not yelling, but you're like, right? All caps is like, all right. And then caps, italicized, which is super harder, right? is like, God damn it! Right, so we have this, and that just helps us conduct our stories from within the lines. It's not trying to overtake a director's job, but I use this when it either is not funny if you don't emphasize this word, or it's not funny if you don't yell it, even if you're trying to be nice. I really like you, right? That's different than I really like you, right? So my scene is going to be different if you don't. I gotta yell it. It's only funny if you yell it. Or indicating, or what is the point of the scene? What is the point of this argument? And usually, if it's that, that's going to be a point. That is like, I'm trying to tell you you're adopted. Or whatever melodrama you could think of. But anyway, this is one way that I do it. Also, if a line ends with, sorry, there's only supposed to be 3 of those. An ellipsis, that is the way that I interpret that, and I sometimes, literally in the kind of frontispiece of the play, under the characters, I will say what ellipses mean to me. And it's like well, I don't quite know what to say next. Right? It's that kind of hesitation. It is not a cutoff. Cutoff for me is hyphen. So that's when you're like, I'm just trying to, somebody cuts off with, I know what you're trying to say. Stop trying to tell me what you say. Do you stop trying, don't tell me what, those are a bunch of hyphens. Whereas this is like, I really love you, right? That's different than I really love you, period, right? So you can help the director and the actors identify how that line can be said. And now oftentimes I will write this various hieroglyphic stuff in the text, and through workshop, realize that none of that is necessary. Or like, that is way too many ellipses. Just please have her finish the damn sentence. Or often, I love a hyphen, so I will do that, and then my actors will be like, can I please, period, just give me one period. So learning that stuff in the room is really helpful, but it's a way that you can use language for all that it is, which is very often we don't completely organically finish our thought with period, right? It's messier than that, and our emphasis and the height of our tone, the sing-songiness, that all has relevance and information in it. So, and that's what makes it feel organic. That was all to say. That's part of what you can use to feel organic. Yeah.
Related to that, when you put words together, like without spaces, what
Yeah,
does that mean?
that's mainly, yeah, I do that sometimes. This is where it says like, I like you a lot. And it's all one word. That is somebody going, I like you a lot. Right? That could indicate neurosis, fear, just an outburst of like, I like you a lot. Or, again, that's different than I like you a lot. And so it's like a character quirk. I use that a lot in INU, which is about teenagers. So I actually got it from Twitter. I was like, okay, just read it all at once. But they talk in hashtags a lot. So again, it's just a way of controlling speed and pacing and language. And it indicates something different. It's like how you can say I love you, and if you tell the actors you're lying, then they'll say it in a different way. Or if somebody says, do you love them? And you go, no. Yeah, you do. We all know it. We all know it. In fact, it's more interesting that you said no, but I know you do. Right, so there's all kinds of things that you can do to help the actors. And again, this is the audience putting it together. It's not being told. These are all ways of not having to tell the audience, I am in love with you, clearly. They can do that themselves, and it's way more interesting to put that together. So, all right, comedy, all about rhythm. It's all the same. It's all the same thing. Yeah. Okay. Other things. Yes.
Could you say more about being a playwright in residence at
Sure.
a theater? Because it seems all theaters don't interpret that the same. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm
they
right
don't.
on that, but just from
Yeah,
what I
so I have a specific grant from the Mellon Foundation, which their experiment is to endow 20-ish playwrights across the country at theaters like Marin. And we are doing various different things with our residency, but the goal is to kind of embed a playwright in a company, and some are 9 to 5 every day at the theater, writing, teaching, being a part of board meetings, making decisions. Some are a little more itinerant, like me, where I'm here about once a week, but available for all different activities and for shows and stuff like that. And yeah, so it's kind of up to the theater and the playwright, but it's not to say that there aren't resident playwrights at various companies without a grant, without this Mellon grant, and people can kind of do with them what they will. Sometimes they're resident writers they're kind of like the theater's best friend playwright, and they do a lot of their work, and they're commissioning that writer, etc. Yeah, so it can be anything, really.
So is there any thought that here it might end up with a new play that you
There
write
will
in the
be.
progress that then they will produce?
Yeah, I think the production is a little bit yes, there will be a production of a new play that was written during the term of my residency. But there will be a couple of plays written, not all, I guess that's how I should say it. There will be at least 3 plays written, at least one of which will be produced, but maybe 3 if they're all really good, but I don't know. They will certainly be different, so, yeah. Yes?
Can you talk about music?
Yeah.
Because I came very late to the whole idea of it's quiet, there's no sounds. And the play I'm working on now, I was trying to think, is there music playing? What is it? Because mine is set in 1974, so I was thinking about infusing some music, but then
Totally.
I've never really thought about it together with the words.
Yeah, you should read this play. Oh, what is the Dominique Morisseau play? Detroit 64?
67.
67. Which year? It's an amazing play by the same playwright who wrote Skeleton Crew, and it has music suffused throughout. And she specifically says this song by this artist, which helps to set time, and the people have like a kind of underground club is their job in their world. So of course they're going to have music. So it's a beautiful blend of world setting and character development and just the fun of that that era combined with the stress of that era for that city at that time is obviously pretty intense. Anyway, I personally love music and theater. I think I empathize with you because oftentimes when I see plays there's not music except in like transitions, which to me is out of the world. So the characters aren't enjoying that music. That's just for the audience to cover people coming on and putting on the table or something. And it can be, the transitions can be really artfully done, which I try to indicate in almost every script, because there's nothing worse than like the really long transition where the audience is like watching the chairs being moved. It takes me so out of the play, and I'm bored, and now I'm mad, and now, I hate theater. So, but I will say that so much of our life is surrounded by music. We're constantly, it's just everywhere on radio and TV and everything. So we are, our lives are curated musically and by ourselves and by other people. So I find it a little blank too when plays there's nothing. So I started to, okay, this is something that you can do to break the world. So oftentimes it's either a musical or a play. And if it's a play, there's music can be like around it, or maybe in it, but it's like somebody has to press play on the CD player or whatever. But I kind of am like, I don't know, what's the in-between? What is a play with music? So I started to commission this one group that I've worked with a lot, the Kildanes. It's an amazing kind of pop rock band. Their rock opera Waitlist is at Z-Space right now, or it's going to be there in a couple weeks, which should be really good, so go see it. The Kildanes, it's called Waitlist, it's going to be awesome.
Where is it?
At Z-Space in the city. And so anyway, I've commissioned her. She's written, her and her husband, Dan, have written a couple different songs for mine. So my play is a historic, it's about Ada Lovelace, who was in the 1830s, but it ends with this like rock operatic song. It's awesome, and it's totally unexpected. Again, I don't know how to end a play except for being like, throw all the theater at it. I don't know. And so it kind of lifts off at the end of this it's a Victorian play, and then we end up with like, electric guitar, and it's so cool. But I didn't write. I mean, I was like, I need a song, and it does this, and it's about this. So I've started to work with them. This new play, it's an adaptation of Trojan Women, has 3 new rock, kind of more like Adele song, like pop songs in it. And so knowing how powerful music is, how invigorating and profound it can be, how emotional it is in like a second. You are in an emotional state, whereas plays, we work like freaking hours to get you in an emotional state, and musicians are like, G minor. So that magical, amazing wizardry, I've just started to be like, screw it, let's put it in the play, because I want it, and I want that power. I want to put it in there, let's do it.
Well, but it can also just be background music.
It can.
Singing, so that's the part that I'm.
Yeah, it can. It will feel like a bad movie quickly. Just watch out. So either have the people actively engaged with the music, so don't score it, because oftentimes it will feel like a mini-series, as you're talking, having a line. It gets sticky really quickly. But read Dominique's play, because she has people going like, oh, I love this song, and then we get to feel it, hear it.
And they're interacting with it.
And they're interacting with it. And then when does somebody come in and turn it off? Like, that's a dramatic moment, right? Like, ooh, you messed with my song. Right, so there's a really interesting way to use it. Yeah. Okay. But again, it's your play. You can kind of do anything. There are rules and there are tendencies, and this is based on a lot of evolutionary biology, this storytelling instinct, but we can still invent. And, you can, there's nothing stopping you from at the beginning of your play saying, this artist is what I want played during any transitions you come up with. Just play Beyonce, just play Adele, just play Frank Sinatra, whatever. Or, here are 5 songs that you can do. You can be as specific as well.
Yes. Can you talk about adaptations? I read novels and I just think, oh, this would make a great play.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
I just now have adapted, it's interesting you asked that. I just finished an adaptation of the novel Time Traveler's Wife, you know that from like a decade or so ago? It's a good book, isn't it? So they're turning that into a musical. So I wrote the book for the musical, which has been really interesting because most of the novel I kept the same, but there were a couple of things when I was like, you spilled your secret right there. That's a secret here, and a secret there. So I'm like, I'm gonna save that secret, put it at the end, even when in her book it was like page 300 out of 400 anyway. So stuff like that. Oftentimes, I will say, I have had more fun adapting myths, ancient plays, stuff like that, than adapting novels, because inherently you're gonna hit a point when you're like, I wish I could change the novel. And if you're adapting a novel, you can't. You can't. Like, somebody's gonna go, but that's not what happened. So it sounds like it'd be fun, but it's actually less fun. I would suggest write your own story that is in that vein. I mean, even in mythology, sometimes it'll be like, damn it, why does she have to turn into a cow? Or whatever. But then you see stuff like Sarah Ruhl's adaptation of Eurydice, which is so gorgeous and strange and beautiful. And Chuck Mee's adaptation of Iphigenia 2.0 was like amazing. I still remember, I was like 12 years ago when I saw it, and I'm still like, reeling from it. So yes, but there's so much stuff to adapt. And you know, the older stuff, the like free of fees things, of rights, you can mess with. Like there's been a ton of adaptations of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and you can play with it now. I mean, it's so well known, it's like mythology, so we can mess with it. And you know, what if the monster, you know, dies first thing? I don't know. We can play with it. Anyway, but yes, in certain forms, I love an adaptation, but it's limiting too. Pisses me off sometimes. Yes.
Quick questions. One is, you said that with agents, sometimes they can act as a dramaturg. I've been thinking about, would it be interesting to actually hire a dramaturg?
Yes.
Ask somebody to actually read something and give me some feedback.
Do it.
That is something you can do.
That is a thing you can do.
Right.
I know for a fact that, well, I know several dramaturgs, and they will charge some amount, but it's usually totally reasonable. And man, it is awesome. Because it's like having a co-writer. And in that you can say, okay, but what if I did this? But what, just the feedback, the sounding off board, that's what I've started to do a lot of collaborations, co-writing, and it's because of that. It's so much fun to write with somebody you trust, but to have somebody to be like, ooh, what if that? Ooh, what if that? Ooh, what if this? Oh my God, let's write it right now. Oh, it's so exciting. So anyway, a dramaturg can be that. And you can look at the Playwright Center in Minneapolis, I think has a like hire a dramaturg program. I think Bay Area Playwrights Foundation still has one. They certainly know a ton of dramaturgs. Our dramaturg here will probably be too busy, as she's always too busy. But there are lots of people out there who are brilliant, and you can pay them a small amount or a decent amount, depending. And they help you.
And then the other one was just about you were talking about just about likable female characters and that whole thing. Did you want to expound on that a little bit?
I do. Yeah, mainly like.
You'll get your $5 later.
You're gonna, thank you, sir. Yeah, for a while, God, I hear every freaking conversation about a play with a lady, and it was about likability. And yeah, and it's every movie, every this, every that, and people think like it's a new idea to be like, I just didn't really like her. And it's the most useless piece of feedback you can get. Because again, as I've said several times, Hamlet is not likable, yet we follow him. And frankly, we need people to be unlikable at times during the play, because that's what makes them interesting. We're not going to watch like a Puritan the entire time, because that's totally boring. We need to find people that are fallible, that make mistakes, that say the wrong thing. My husband always gets mad in the middle of movies, and I always correct him, but he always forgets. He's just like, oh, nobody would say that. Why would you say that? You're just going to get in trouble if you say that. I'm like, they have to say it, because in a minute they're going to... like, damn you, structure. Because we have to write people that aren't as well behaved as us, and aren't as polite. And because like we're Californians, we're very like, I respect your opinion. But people in plays have to be like, fuck you, that's awful, get out of here. Because we want to be like, ooh, they're fighting. So, part of that, I'm very anti-drama, which is hilarious. But my vows when I got married literally were, we will keep the drama on the stage. So, I know, my husband's a good sport. Yes, so we have to, and this sense of likability is actually, it's good. If you are unlikable, whatever stickiness that word is, that means you're doing a good job of creating a character that has flaws, that is something to lose, that is not steady right now. The whole point of this is to knock your character off of their balance. They're imbalanced. They're balanced here, they're balanced there, but every place in between, they are going to fall over to their doom at any moment. So anyway, luckily, even the last 6 months, we've seen this burst of women going, yeah, not gonna take that anymore. Which includes, there's been a lot of the behind the scenes and in front of the camera, the relationships, but so much of this is built into our storytelling, unfortunately. So many movies, the woman is nothing but a conqueror, to be conquered. usually with her shirt off at some point. It's, you know, there's no sense of anything outside of the relationship between a man. And frankly, thank goodness we're going, oh, there seems to be a connection between society and the thing it watches all the time. So yes, we are able now to see that activism, which is why it is activist. Again, Bay Area, we're all activists, aren't we? It is an activism to write a complex, real woman who is doing something besides getting married or being screwed, or being mom. But although actually we don't have very many moms on stage, so write those, keep writing those. But so much of the other stuff about women, and it's very rare to find an all-female play, so keep writing those. Even men, we like that too. Yeah, think about what is worth putting out in the world. This goes a little bit back to our why are you writing question, which we talked about a little last week too. Which I love this question because it's a lot of time, and a lot of energy, a lot of emotional energy to write something. So starting out going, and you know, we're not falling into these things, we're choosing what to write. We have a choice. So making sure that if you're writing an all-male play, why? Just, you can. Okay, you know what I mean?
Can I throw something out there?
Yes.
That theaters also don't have the men. Period. Any audition you go to, you're
There's
going to
so
see
many women.
99 women and 2 men. Yet the script invariably calls for 12 men and 2 women.
And it even comes down to an economic issue too, because oftentimes because of this, the men, they get the equity contracts, which means they get more money, and all the non-equity parts go to the women, which means that women are, once again, being paid half as much to do the exact same job. So part of this is there is activism in writing, not necessarily all women's stories, but remind yourselves, even I'm writing the play Book of Wills about Shakespeare's friends in England in 1692. A lot of white people, and one would assume, oh damn, there's our alarm, 15 minutes. And one would assume that they're all white and all men, and I insisted not. Which makes it more relevant, more exciting, right? Going and seeing a play with all white men is like, I mean, I love white men, but I don't know if I need to see 10 of them on stage for 2.5 hours. So it just makes it more relevant, more interesting. It's all for better theater, actually. It's not just activism, it's actually making theater better, better for all of us. Anyway, think about that. Yes?
Yeah. 2 questions. One is about publishing in the 21st century as opposed to the 20th century.
Yes.
The different options and things like that. And, and also how to keep something, can you keep something fluid after it's published?
Yes.
And things about different copyright options. That's one question. And the other one is, I'm really intrigued by your evolutionary biology, neurology, all that. And I'm just kind of curious about your top 5, books for playwrights from science.
Totally. I'm going to write one first. But yes, I will make a book list for a second, but let's talk about publishing real quick. So publishing will not happen until it's had at least 1 production. So focus again on productions first. And there's a couple of different avenues. The more traditional ones are Sam French and Dramatists Play Service. And there's kind of a new guy who's, I mean, they're like 20 years old now, but playscripts.com, I've had most of my plays are there. Well, Dramatist now has about half, and Playscripts has half, and Sam French has 1. So, Playscripts' new whole thing was a print on demand, which when you order it, it's like, I mean, they have some in stock, but it's really easy for them to print more and more. Which does mean that you can change it, but it's not like an every month, you're like, well, actually I changed my mind, change that. It's like, do it, make sure it's right. This is why it requires at least 1 production, because you learn so much in the production, you really have to see it done once, or I argue I'm not done with the play until I've seen it in full production at least twice, which sounds like a total luxury, because getting 1 production is a lot of work, but it really requires 2 full rehearsal processes for me to go, yeah, I can leave this one now, it's fine. But even then, I have a production of I and You coming to London in soon. I don't think I can actually say when it's coming because they haven't announced it yet, but later this year. And I'm specifically going there to tweak it for those actors and to add some stuff that I've been wanting to add so I can still like zhuzh it a little bit. And then after that, I will get a new printing of it.
And where will it be at?
It's at the Hampstead Theatre in London.
Oh, how neat.
I know, very excited. And I'm going to be there too, London. I'm very excited about. So yeah, we're there.
Yeah.
Get your tickets. Okay, so books. I'm gonna write the playwriting books and nerdy science books. The one I was talking about first was Sapiens. I think his last name is Harari. That's great. Chapter 2, winner of the chapter. Let's see. There's one called, what's it called? Oh yeah, The Origin of Stories. The Origin of Stories, which is a title I wish I had thought of. Like The Origin of Species, right? Gorgeous. And great playwriting books are Backwards and Forwards by David Ball. Into the Woods by John York with a K. Ball. What are the other ones? There's one book called Art Instinct, which is good. It's goodish, but yeah. The thing is, a lot of these books, not many of them are specific to theater. Oftentimes they're about novel, mythology, screenwriting, visual art, music. It's about a lot of things, but I kind of am like, yeah, get to them. Because there is something so freaking ancient about standing in front of live people and telling a story that is not this. Like novels came way later, like way later. So that primal sense of like gather around the actual fire, and I will tell you a thing is pretty cool. So anyway, I'm gonna write that book that is missing from that canon. There's a lot of academic stuff like about cognitive neuroscience and theater and various things, which can be. Oh yeah, there's one I have in my bag that I think is interesting. I haven't finished it yet. Called The Literary Animal. Oh yeah, and there's one called by the same guy called The Storytelling Animal. And that guy is Jonathan Gottschall. Gottchall. Storytelling Animal. The Literary Animal is like a collection of a bunch of essays from different people, but like E.O. Wilson profiled it, so that's pretty cool. There's some interesting, and David Dennett is in it. I like it. Anyway, what to say? Oh yeah, and there's an awesome thing I will send you if you email me. It's a Washington Post like a month or two ago. It's called Your Brain on Art, I think. Your Brain on Art. Just Google that, Washington Post Brain on Art. It's a great, really interesting, and quite beautiful online story about. They have this dancer from Swan Lake that but it talks about literally how our brains watch people. These things like mirror neurons are what triggers us to empathize with somebody doing an action and it feels like we are doing it, or a brain is doing it in its head. That's weird, the brain's head. Anyway. But anyway, there's a lot of science, really cool, interesting stuff. But that field is called evolutionary aesthetics, or what's it called? Aesthetics, something, cognitive aesthetics of image. There's some term for that new field, which is really exciting because the science is getting good enough. And they're actually doing, the play that they're doing in London is called I Am You. Well, that was the one that was done here. And because there's this big kind of juicy end, there's a scientist from a local university that's going to be studying the audiences to try to measure pulse and sweat glands and eye dilation when you're watching a play. that one, and like, does it change? Like, are there moments when everyone's heart starts doing this at once? That'd be pretty cool.
How would they do that?
I don't know. I'm so excited though. This is like the perfect blend of all things I love.
You do it with telemetry, like you put on astronauts.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple pieces of tape and some wire.
I see. Wow.
Yeah. So they want it to be small enough that it won't inhibit your
that's
enjoyment, so you're not like wearing it on. But yeah, something that you can tell. You're not looking at an MRI watching it, but they can just take pulse and stuff. So, all right, any other last questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Playwriting software.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I just use Word, and I honestly say copy and pasting the character name actually slows me down and makes me reread a scene several times, so that actually helps. I find Final Draft is too quick. For movies, it's great, but for playwriting, I get lost, and I'm like, I don't even know where I am. There was another software that worked for a little bit until it screwed me over. Scribner. Yeah. It can work for it helped for 2 projects. It was really great for 2 projects, and then one it didn't work. So I think Microsoft Word is great. Final Draft is good too, and once you have it, it's so good for screenwriting and TV writing.
Right.
You just can't do it without it, really. Yes.
What were you thinking about doing screenwriting? Doing screenwriting at all?
Yes, yeah, and I do write some films, mainly because TV writing is like a 9 to 5 job, like Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you go to work and write. And because I don't live in LA, nor do I deeply want to. I can't, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I love going down there, and the good news is it's just an hour flight from here, so I go down there for those projects. But at the moment, movies is what I can do easiest from here. And I really love them, and it's such a different, it really is a different, I have to think very differently, which I like. I kind of need to get out of it. But I like writing TV too, but it's just a different job.
Well, that's pretty amazing because screenwriting is so visual.
Mhm.
For me, it's like night and day.
It
You're
is.
just imagining a story in pictures as opposed to, it's a different version, but it's so fascinating how it flips the story.
Yeah, I do think doing a lot of screen or pilot writing, TV writing, can make you a really sharp playwright, and I mean that because it makes you focus your scenes really quickly. Sometimes in playwriting we get a little lugubrious, chatty, and in screen you can't do that. Like, just go, what's next? Domino better fall, like in 5, 4, 3, 2, go. So it helps me, like when I was in grad school and I was writing a bunch of things, as you do, I learned that my plays got snappier, which I think is good. Again, don't bore, never bore, one thing you can't do. Yes?
Nice. So a follow-up question is, when you're talking about evolutionary aesthetics or this new field that's evolving, is there some fancy university that's at the center of that, or some conference that you're in? Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's starting to be, but there's a bunch of people doing it in different ways. But yes, I have a bunch of these articles collected that are kind of talking about different things that kind of coalesce to, that sounds like a thing we do in theater, is we look at people, or we listen, or we're quiet, but you know. So I think it's all starting to kind of to coalesce, but.
Anything you wish you'd known when you started?
Oh.
Yeah, some of what I already talked about, but getting that draft done. Like, once you get the draft done, then you make it better. And you can rewrite the entire thing. And I have done that several times, literally going, it will be harder to go into it and fix it than to just go, see what, like, I had to do that twice. It was terrifying, but it was way better, because oftentimes if you go into something, if you stick with something too long, it becomes a monster. It becomes the Frankenstein monster, all the pieces, and you're like, I don't even know why I was there. It was just been there for the whole time, so I kept it, and as opposed to the freedom of going, okay, I know this idea. The story isn't lost if I, don't, it's not in this play, it's in me. So then, oftentimes, the clarity of shaking off all the things you've decided in here means that nothing is decided yet, except for what you know is important about your story when you write that. So, being unafraid of the rewrite, getting it down, thinking about the ending as soon as you can, and even in light ways. I'm telling you, it's not like you have the entire thing plotted out and, architect your way there, but you really, the sooner you can know where we're going. Is this going to end in a hug or a bloodbath? Are they going to get together? Are they going to kind of get together? Like Romeo and Juliet, get together. But, right, so there's versions where we can iterate, but having that sense of where you're going, you'll just get there faster, which means you can get in the room faster, which means you can get the thing, and suddenly everything is the thing. What else? Yeah, don't justify, no joke or beauty is worth boring your audience. Just don't bore them. That's where we started when we were into this. No, boring. You just can't do it. And it's not worth it, and it's not fun. Yeah, don't do that. What else? Yeah, don't worry about agents. They'll come to you. Yeah, I mean, part of it is learning how to take a note eventually when you're in the room. Don't take every note. You actually know your story best, so don't listen to, even if I tell you all the things. You can be like, bullshit, Lauren. It's hard, and it will be hard, but you have to trust that you know what you're doing. And you can also say, I don't know. That was one thing that I had to learn. If I'm getting peppered with questions and notes, I can go, I don't know. But I wouldn't think about that, and I will figure it out. So you don't have to invent an answer in a room full of actors being like, I don't understand why did this? You can just be like, that I'm not sure on, but thank you. I don't think about it. Yeah, I mean, there's myriad stories of writers' projects being just derailed because of a note that somebody powerful gave them, or you thought you should take it, or you took all of the notes in the room, some of which are contradictory, which how did you do that, and yeah. And still have fun. I mean, it should be fun. It's hard, but like have fun. It is great fun when you actually get into the room with it.
If it isn't, you're in the wrong business.
Indeed, it's too hard. If it's not fun, do something else. Fun.